All right. Thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. We'll get started in a minute. I apologize for not putting any material up like the past 5 days. My wife's birthday is actually New Year's Eve, and we had a party for her, and I was getting ready for that and things like that. I had friends come in from out of town, but it was great. I had a great holiday, vacation, ready to get back to work, so I won't bore you with all the details, but it was a good time, and I hope everyone else had a good Christmas, whatever holiday you celebrate, and a good New Year. So, yeah, just real quick, my plans here in the short term. I'm going to try to be consistent, be putting out more non-live videos, trying to average at least one a day. Some days I might put two up, some days none. And then trying to do the live streams every Thursday at noon for the time being, and every Monday night at 11 p.m. Eastern time. So that is the plan. So for my first video here, my first live stream of 2020, I wanted to talk about what I look at as the 5 top scandals that we have coming into the new year. Now, this is by no means a list that is comprehensive. There are far more scandals than this going on. Most of them involve the establishment, or what I call the deep state. When I reference that, I'm referencing both establishment politicians in the Democrat and Republican Party, though clearly it's far more in the Democrat Party. Places like the mainstream media, places like the intel community, and people such as unelected bureaucrats or corporate interest, wealthy people that are basically controlling the levers of our government so that the average person like me and you has no voice in it. So those of you who watch my channel often know that's what I'm talking about, but I feel like it's important to say that at the onset because we'll be talking about a lot of that. So it's not a comprehensive list, but I put them in order, the top 5 that I have in order of least to most important of the severity of the scandal. Now, these 5 I list, I think each one of them are devastating. Each one of them, if you're a patriot, regardless if you're a Trump supporter, you're conservative, you're Republicans, what's up, Modus? Whatever, it should anger you beyond belief and want you to get out there and vote or do what you can to change this massive corruption that's going on. And so that's just my opinion on it. I also want to say at the outset that all 5 of these, I will give my case for them, but I will also try to give a case in all 5 of these issues. Why, even if you're someone who dislikes Trump, or even if you only want to believe the mainstream media, Democrat establishment, deep state talking points, why these should still all be big scandals that concern every one of you. You should never, ever, ever, if you're one of my Democratic friends out there, or you're one of my friends that hate Trump, you should never, and this goes for everyone, allow one politician or one person to destroy your own integrity. Yeah, I love you too, Modus. Thanks for being on. So, let's get started. So, these are in descending order. So, this is number 5. Oh, and the last thing is, I will try to put a video out specifically on this, just like a small 5-6 minute video, just on the high points of this later today or tomorrow. So, the number 5 that I have the biggest scandal coming into 2020, and that is Kremlin disinformation and their efforts to disrupt our system. Now, this is something that I did a video on recently, and that is the idea that you have the media, the Democrats, the intel agencies, bureaucrats, like those in the State Department that testified against Trump. They're repeatedly trying to say, anytime we look into the corruption of the intel community, or anytime we look into corruption of Democrats or corruption that benefited Democrats, such as Ukrainian election interference. I'll get to that a little later, but this is confirmed, the election interference, confirmed in the own words of the Ukrainian parliamentarians and officials that actually interfered to help Hillary. We know this happened, but the media, the intel community, and all these groups say, oh, no, to bring this up is spreading the Kremlin's talking points. It's spreading disinformation. It's causing division within the country. So for me, the 5th biggest scandal going into 2020 is the fact that we're told that this is spreading disinformation, but in reality, the number 1 piece of Kremlin disinformation that has been spread was the claims in Christopher Steele's dossier that was spread for 3 years, going on 4 years, still spread to this day by the mainstream media, Democratic politicians, the intel agencies, and the bureaucrats. The very same people that are telling you, oh, you can't look into their corruption. You can't look into intel agency corruption. You can't look into media corruption. You can't look into Democratic corruption because that's all, that's causing division. That's what the Kremlin wants. That's what Putin wants. The very same people telling you that have spread the most severe, the most effective Kremlin disinformation that has came out. Now, I already did a video on this, so I won't spend a ton of time talking about it. But the idea is this. We were told that the Kremlin wanted to interfere in our election. I believe this. I also believe that China wanted to interfere in our election. I believe the UK wanted to interfere in our elections. I believe Spain wanted to interfere in our election. Japan probably wanted to interfere. Germany wanted to interfere. North Korea wanted to interfere. Basically, every country in the world that knows that we have a democratic republic wants someone elected that will advance their interests more than anything else. And so they'll interfere in either legitimate or illegitimate ways. What would be a legitimate way? I have no problem if the media in Denmark or the media in North Korea or the media in Germany wants to tell their people or put out stories to promote the candidate they want. That's fine. There are illegitimate reasons, such as hacking, spreading disinformation, things like that. But nonetheless, we know that that's how the world operates. We were told constantly by the intel agent people, the Democrats, the media, all of them. They all told us that even if it is true that the Kremlin wanted one candidate to win over another, their biggest agenda was to cause division in the United States. And this makes sense because, remember, no matter what story that the media and the Democrats want to spin to you, most likely the Kremlin assumed Hillary would win. So they weren't going to go all in on just smearing Hillary. They might have preferred Trump, that might be true, but they, like everyone else, probably assumed Hillary was going to win. So their goal was just to smear both candidates, which they did. Remember, the Russian trolls that we're talking about, never forget, a lot of what they were promoting was LGBT, Black Lives Matter. They were promoting rallies against Trump. They were also promoting stuff against Hillary. But the idea is they just want to cause division. They want to smear whoever the president is. And the reason we're told, and again, this makes sense, that they want division is if people in the United States are busy arguing with each other, then the United States isn't as capable to project power around the rest of the world or to stymie the interest of Russia, etc. So, that's what we were told, but they want to cause division. They want to cause division. Now, what was the number one way that Russia caused division? What are they accused of doing? The Mueller report said they did two things to interfere in our election. The first was they hacked the DNC and John Podesta's emails. I'm not sure I believe that, as I'll get to in my number one story, because I don't trust anything the FBI says. But let's take them at face value there. So they had those hacks, and there were 12 Russian trolls that posted things on Pokemon Go and Facebook. That's clearly a joke. That's hardly effectual at all. Both of those pale in comparison to, we know, this isn't Crazy Rob nor a right-wing conspiracy theorist. This isn't Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Rush Limbaugh or Trump's talking points. We have known from the outset that the Steele dossier, almost every single claim in it of illegalities between Trump's team working with Russia or Trump getting peed on, etc., all of that crap came from Kremlin sources. Two sources in the Kremlin government close to Putin. That's what Steele admitted. So we've known this ever since the Steele information came to... Hey, what's up, Dib? Happy New Year. Thanks for being here, man. We've known that ever since the allegations in the Steele dossier came out. So from the get-go, the media, the intel agency, the State Department, the Democrat officials, even without anything else, from the get-go, when they were pushing the claims in the Steele dossier, regardless if they would be found out to be true or not, we knew these were, quote, talking points from Kremlin officials. The very thing they accuse us now of doing for wanting to investigate their corruption. But they didn't care. They didn't take the time to find out if it was true or not. They just took the Russian propaganda and ran with it. We now know it wasn't true. Now, not only was this the biggest instance of causing division in this country and interfering in this country, for example, I found a poll from April of last year, 2019, showing that 50% of Americans polled still believe the Steele dossier, believe that President Trump committed treason with Putin. This is after the Mueller report came out and said, no, that's not true. Happy New Year, SJG. I'll get a hold of you later today, man, by the way, about maybe doing some collaboration stuff. So anyways, that's how much division this is. Half the country still believes Trump's, or at least half those people polled, a large group of people, regardless if you believe the polls or not, still believe the allegations in the Steele dossier that Trump's committed treason on behalf of Russia. He stole the election with Russia. Half of Americans still believe that. Adam Schiff still claims to believe that. He claims to have seen evidence which he hasn't produced. So did Eric Swalwell. So did Maxine Waters. All of these prominent Democrat politicians. We heard this repeated verbatim by people in the State Department that testified in the impeachment hearings. Part of the first impeachment article includes claims from the Steele dossier, includes claims of Trump working with Russia. So we know this has been the most effective. It's been the top Democrat story. It's been the top story in the media. The entertainment industry has talked about it nonstop. Academia has talked about it nonstop. Silicon Valley's promoted it nonstop for 3+ years. The claims in the Steele dossier. We had to have an independent counsel investigate Trump and his team for over 2 years based on this. That led to his lawyer's office being raided in the middle of the night. Crimes from years ago that had nothing to do with Trump being prosecuted and smearing Trump with it. All of this based on disinformation from the Kremlin. Not only that, we know that this Kremlin disinformation, that alone, what I just talked about alone, is staggering. That's the greatest amount of division you could cause within the country. That's being promoted by the very same people that are telling you anytime you want to look into them, that's spreading Putin's talking points. Again, what do they always do? What do these Democrats, what does these establishment deep state goons always do? They accuse you and others of exactly what they're doing. So they say, you can't look at us. If you look at us, that's helping Russia. Meanwhile, they've spent and continue to spend time spreading disinformation that came from Kremlin sources. Directly from Kremlin sources. And they know it. They know that it was untrue. They know it was never verified at the very least. And they knew it came from Kremlin sources. And they didn't care. They spread that disinformation. What's up, Milo? But that's bad enough. But then we also know, and this is what makes it a scandal of epic proportions. This disinformation from the Kremlin was so successful that it actually caused the FBI to use it to spy on Trump's campaign. If you read the IG report, it says the only FISA warrant that we know about right now, which was, for those of you who don't know, that's to spy on someone, an American citizen. Wiretaps, other things like that. Getting all their emails, all their communications. By the way, Milo, thanks to Milo for reminding me this and giving me more information on it. Check out a guy by the name of Bill Binney, who was instrumental in the NSA and getting the surveillance state started, but he's a whistleblower that came out against it. He talks about how there's a 2-hop rule with FISA warrants. So basically, if you get a warrant against someone, you can not only spy on them and everyone they talk to, but also everyone who they talk to and who they talk to. In other words, you hop twice from the person you're surveying. So if there's a warrant against me and I'm talking to my friend Milo here, they could not only get the communications of Milo, but also the communications of everyone Milo discusses things with. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. That means Kremlin disinformation was used to spy directly on the Trump campaign by the FBI. That is easily the biggest Russian disinformation, the biggest effect that it had achieving their goals, which is to cause division in our country. This isn't my claim. This is the Democrat, the intel agency's claim, right? That's what they want to do, cause division in the United States. Can you show me a bigger example than the Steele dossier, which was so effective it caused the FBI to break protocol 17 times to spy on the Trump campaign? That's unbelievable. Right, and you're absolutely right, Milo. This is beyond what we're just talking about with Trump and Carter Page. This sort of abuse from the intel agencies and the FBI is disgusting, even in a non-political way. Basically, the FISA court's a rubber stamp, and they can use this process to spy on whoever they want. Your rights, your constitutional rights be damned. Now, this is a scandal of epic proportions. Russia interference into our system, the biggest example of it. Now, we know this is a big scandal because we were told by everyone, all you have to do is turn on your TV any point during the past 3 years. And we were told, oh, we have to do whatever we can to get to the bottom of foreign interference. Russian interference is the biggest deal ever. It's what the Democrats told us. It's what the mainstream media told us. It's what academia told us. It's what the entertainment industry told us. It's what Silicon Valley told us. It's what all the elites, the know-it-alls told us, right? Oh, interference is such a huge deal. It was an act of war. An act of war, we were told. So, if we have the most prominent example of it, the biggest Russian disinformation that was used to cause division, then surely this is a big story. Now remember, we already had an FBI investigation and a special counsel investigation into Russian interference. Never forget, Mueller was tasked with doing 2 things. Yes, one of the things he was tasked with was investigating possible crimes committed by Trump or his team involving colluding with Russia. What's up, Michelle? Thank you. But the other thing, and definitely I would say the most important thing that Mueller was tasked with, was investigating all Russian interference into our election. That's what the entire FBI investigation was about. Mueller was supposed to continue that investigation and then also look at Trump's team. For some reason, though, and I've read the Mueller report, almost the entirety of it, I don't see word one about the Steele dossier in it. For some reason, Bob Mueller decided to not investigate the most extreme, severe, and impactful example of known Kremlin interference into our election. He just decided not to look at it. For some reason, the media, the Democrats, the rest of the intel agencies, academia, etc., all those groups that said, oh, Russian interference, it's an act of war. It's the most serious thing ever that we investigate. For some reason, none of them spoke up about this. None of them cared that Kremlin sources spread lies and disinformation to smear Donald Trump, which caused the FBI to break protocol to spy on Trump's campaign, which became the biggest media story in the world for 3 years, every night, saying Trump might be a treasonous traitor to the United States working under the thumb of Putin, that people still believe to this day, even though it's been debunked. Yet all the groups that spoke loudest about, we have to fight Russia disinformation, we have to fight Russian interference, they don't say a word about it. That's why, to me, this scandal, this is number 5, right? I have 4 scandals I feel are bigger than this. This scandal alone is enormous. Any other year, it would be the biggest scandal you can imagine. But we had such a great year in 2019. This is the bottom of my list. Why is this important? What does this show us? Number 1, it shows us every single person that spouted their mouth off, whether it's Democrat politicians, the intel community like the FBI or the CIA, the people that ran it like Brennan, Comey, Clapper, the media, academia, all the people that claimed that Russian interference was a serious deal, that haven't spoke up about this are liars. They're hypocrites. They don't care. They're transparently showing you that all they care about is getting Donald Trump. They don't care about Russian interference. The investigation was never about trying to protect our elections. It was never about trying to root out Russian interference. Neither the FBI, nor the Mueller investigation, nor the media coverage, nor the Democrats' concerns. That was all a lie. It was just about getting Trump. Now, this is in our face. This is provable. Again, it is, we know without a doubt, it was the Democrats' own hero, Mueller, the media's own hero, Mueller, that basically said there's no evidence of any of these claims in the Steele dossier. It was the IG that they wanted, Horowitz, that showed that these claims were used to spy on Trump's team and that they were lies. This isn't crazy right-wing conspiracy talking points, yet they don't care. You bring this up to an average Trump disliking person on Twitter or something, and they'll say, "Oh, show me that it's been disproven. Show me that it's been debunked." Well, isn't it true that people on Trump's team talk to Russians? Well, yeah, that's true. So did people on Hillary's team. That doesn't prove the Steele dossier was true. They don't care. And if you do actually care about Russian interference, which is something we should be concerned with, though I don't think it's as big a deal as been made out, then this would be the top priority. Right, Michelle, that's a great point. We know that Mueller knew that this was garbage from the outset. Why didn't he speak up about it? Well, got it held out until after the 2018 election, right? Look at the dominoes that's caused. 2018 election. Who knows? Had it came out that this was all lies before the 2018 election, maybe the Republicans maintain the House. Then maybe we don't have the impeachment sham. Then maybe we can get to the bottom of the Obama-Biden administration's corruption in Ukraine, China, and other places. But no, Mueller was not an investigator. He was a political actor. So that's number 5. Let's move on to number 4. So I just explained to you how we were told over and over again for 3 years. Foreign election interference is one of the most serious things we need to investigate. We need to get to the bottom of it. Democrats were calling it an act of war. They said that it jeopardized our entire election system if we had foreign countries meddling in our elections. Right? That's what the Democrats said. That's their take. That's not crazy right-wing talking points. This is the media. This is the intel people. This is the Democrats. That's what they're saying. Okay? They told us that we needed to leave no stone unturned. They said that we had to raid Roger Stone while he was in his underwear in the middle of the night, while he's there with his wife, with guns drawn, while we tipped off CNN to film him. They said that was all necessary. They said that we had to look into anyone connected to Trump. We had to go back decades to see if they committed crime. We had to go to Trump's lawyer and raid their house in the middle of the night. We had to arrest Michael Flynn. We had to spy on Carter Page. We had to send spies to George Papadopoulos. All of this was because the idea that there was a foreign country interfering in our election was so serious that we had to leave no stone unturned. That's what they told us. That's what the Democrats told us. That's what the media told us. That's what the unelected bureaucrats told us. Okay, so here's scandal number 4. We know that Ukrainian parliamentarians, particularly a man by the name of Sergei Leshchenko, with the man who was in charge of the equivalent of their FBI, named Artem Sitnik, publicly admitted. We have the audio of it. We have the articles of it. In Leshchenko's case, admitted 2 months before the election to the Financial Times of the United States to interfering in the U.S. election to help Hillary Clinton. We know that. That's not even the scandal yet, though. That's bad enough. So, all of those groups, right? The Democrats, the media, the intel officials, the bureaucrats, they all said, oh, election interference. Well, like we said, it's a serious deal. No! They said the opposite. They said, who cares? It's all been debunked. Fiona Hill, go back and watch the video I did on this. In Fiona Hill's untelevised testimony, the closed-door testimony, in the transcript of it, she specifically asked about this Ukrainian election interference. She says, I don't think it's a big deal. My family didn't vote because of election interference. They cared about health care. That's what Fiona Hill said, Democrat star witness. Then literally, the next paragraph, she's like, oh, but Russia interference is the biggest deal ever. What happened to health care? Isn't it convenient? They only care about interference that supposedly harmed their side. Interference that helps their side, no problem. So none of them cared. But here's the scandal. That's bad enough, right? Here's the scandal. The same State Department bureaucrats that testified against Trump for the Democrats in the impeachment hearing, that said that people like John Solomon, who had reported that Ukrainian prosecutors, including a man by the name of Lutsenko, was told not to prosecute or not to investigate certain Obama allies. They said that was all a lie. None of that happened. In their closed-door testimony, they admitted, this is in front of Congress, so this is under oath. They admitted, yes, we did tell Ukrainian prosecutors to stop prosecutions or to stop investigations. Not only into Obama allies, but here's the scandal, into people who were accused of interfering in the election to help Hillary. Now, this is publicly admitted. This is under testimony. Let me repeat what I just said. I'm the only person in the country I've heard talking about this. We were told for 3 years that investigating foreign interference into our election was the most important thing ever. Yet we have public admission by the very people testifying against Trump in the impeachment that yes, we told Ukrainian prosecutors to drop investigations into 2016 Ukrainian interference into the U.S. election. That's unreal. The same thing that we had to raid Trump's lawyer in the middle of the night. We had to raid Roger Stone. We had to have coverage, 3-year investigations, nonstop coverage. The same crime, foreign election interference, when it's done on the other side, and not only does the media not care, not only does the Dems not care, not only does academia not care, but we actually have bureaucrats stopping an investigation. Now, maybe you don't believe me. Let's see if I can bring it up here. My computer's a little slow today, but I'll try my best. Why is this such a big deal? What? And I'll try to bring up the proof here in a minute. Because again, it shows the double standards. I've said all along, and I think most Trump supporters feel the same way as me. If Trump committed some crime, if there was proof that he actually did illegally conspire with Putin to steal the 2016 election, then yes, he should be charged with those crimes. I have no problem with that. Right? That's fine. I've said that from the get-go. All I want is equal application of the law. If we're going to say foreign election interference is the hugest deal ever, we need to raid lawyers' offices in the middle of the night. We need to cover it 24/7 on the media. We need to consider it an act of war. Everything we do in Capitol Hill needs to be about this. Okay, I'm not really in that boat. But if that's going to be the standard when it comes to things that could hurt Trump, then that should be the standard all around. All of a sudden, as always, when we see the exact same crime committed and it helps the other side, we find excuse after excuse by them to say, oh, no, this isn't important. Okay, I think I'm bringing it up here. Oh, wait, crap. This is the wrong one, isn't it? Let me research, or re-find it again. I don't know if I'll be able to bring it up, but you could yourself go to George Kent's closed-door testimony. He's asked specifically, did you ever tell Lutsenko to drop investigations? And he said, well, we didn't say to drop it. What we said was, if you investigate people like Artem Sitnik, the head of the NABU, one of the ones that's publicly admitted to interfering to help Hillary, George Kent said, if you investigate him, that will cause us to stop our cooperation with Ukraine. And what was our cooperation? Well, the billions of dollars that were being sent. In other words, a quid pro quo. I mean, it's devastating. So on one hand, we have to do everything possible to investigate any kind of foreign election interference that could have helped Trump. But when we actually have proof, public admissions of foreign election interference that hurt Trump, our government agencies are going out of their way to stop even the Ukrainian government from investigating that. Now, the Ukrainian government found Artem Sitnik and Lyshenko guilty of interfering in the 2016 election to help Hillary. Now, the verdict was overturned on a technicality. But they thought there was evidence not only to charge, not only to have a case, a court case, but they actually found them guilty. Let's see if real quick, I'll try to find this again. I wrote about this November 18th, 2019. I haven't heard one person talk about it. Not one. We've been told for 3 years we have to investigate nonstop foreign election interference. The very people testifying against Trump have admitted we told Ukrainian prosecutors not to investigate foreign election interference from Ukraine that helped Hillary. All right. To everyone's benefit, I will shrink my beautiful face here. Again, this is me on a website above top secret. This is from Financial Times in August of 2016. I'll read here the quoted section I have. For years, Sergei Lyshenko, a top Ukrainian anti-corruption campaigner, worked to expose kleptocracy under former President Yanukovych. Now he's focusing on new perceived pro-Russian threat to Ukraine, U.S. candidate Trump. The prospect of Mr. Trump, who has praised Putin becoming leader of the country's biggest ally, spurred not just Mr. Lyshenko, but Kiev's wider political leadership to do something they never attempted before. Intervene, however indirectly, in the U.S. election. Did you get that? Financial Times, mainstream media, August 2016, admitting Yushchenko and Kiev's wider political leadership are intervening in the U.S. election. Mr. Lyshenko and Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Bureau, that's the NABU that's headed by Artem Sitnik, published a secret ledger this month that authorities claim show millions of dollars off the book payments to Manafort. This is Lyshenko's quote. A Trump presidency would change the pro-Ukrainian agenda in American foreign policy, Mr. Lyshenko told Financial Times. For me, it was important to not only show the corruption aspect, but that he's a pro-Russian candidate who could break the geopolitical balance in the world. In other words, Lyshenko's admitting, I interfered because I don't like Trump's politics. Politico said the same thing. Now, this is John Solomon from his article. Here's him quoted. My sources told me specifically U.S. Embassy had pressured the Ukrainian prosecutors in 2016 to drop or avoid pursuing several cases, including one involving the Soros-backed Anti-Corruption Action Center and 2 cases involving Ukrainian officials who criticized Trump and his campaign manager Manafort. To back up their story, my sources provided me a letter then Embassy official George Kent wrote proving it happened. State officials authenticated the letter, and Kent recently acknowledged in his testimony he signed the letter. Here's the letter. If it comes up. Sorry about the poor internet. This is written to the Deputy Prosecutor General, Office of the Ukraine. Who's it written by? Who's it signed by at the end? George Kent. That's the guy that testified against Trump. He's the guy that said, oh, I can't believe that Yovanovitch was fired. Oh, that's terrible. Here's the last 3 paragraphs. Quote from George Kent. We are completely satisfied the assistant in question has only been used for the purposes at hand. As stated above, don't see any ground for perspective as the donor who provided the assistance for the investigation into their use. In other words, Obama's administration gave a bunch of funds to this Anti-Corruption Action Center that Soros also gave funds to, and they were being investigated by Ukrainian prosecutors for possible corruption. And our State Department was writing letters saying, drop the investigation, because we know we funded them and they're legit. He continues, given the above, we reject allegations that Mr. Saccavallese or anyone within the Prosecutor General's office with whom we work could have misused these funds, since they were never under their control. The investigation into the Anti-Corruption Action Center, based on the assistance they have received from us, is misplaced. As voiced by European Union Ambassador Tombinski, we are gravely concerned about this investigation, for which we see no basis, and which appears to be an attempt to intimidate the Prosecutor General's office most committed to combating corruption, as well as non-governmental partners and outspoken anti-corruption activists. The U.S. is committed to supporting reforms within the PGO office in order to build its capacity to meet citizens' demand to recover stolen assets and counter corruption within the government. Signed, George Kent. So that's proof they were telling them to drop investigations into Obama allies. Now, you wouldn't know that because if you heard Fiona Hill and Yovanovitch and George Kent testify publicly, they said, oh no, John Solomon's reporting's garbage. We never told Litsenko or other Ukrainian prosecutors they had to drop investigations. There's a letter from George Kent proving otherwise. Now, more specifically on other things, back to John Solomon. He says, quote, I provided the names that Litsenko claimed had been cited by the embassy. That senior official said he couldn't speak on what transpired in the specific meeting between Yovanovitch. Remember Yovanovitch? The hero. Oh, the poor lady that Trump fired for no reason. She's a hero. She never did anything dirty. The claim was Litsenko, this Ukrainian prosecutor, said Yovanovitch gave me a list of names that I wasn't allowed to prosecute. All the media said that's been debunked lies. So let's see what Solomon says. The State Department official then provided me this surprising confirmation. I can confirm to you that at least some of those names are names that the U.S. Embassy in Kiev raised with the general prosecutor because we were concerned about retribution and unfair treatment of Ukrainians viewed as favorable to the United States. In other words, State was confirming its own embassy had engaged in pressure on Ukraine prosecutors to drop law enforcement cases, just as Litsenko claimed. But it gets worse. This is where they talk specifically about pressuring to stop investigations into 2016 election interference. From John Solomon again. More recently, George Kent, the embassy's charged d'affaires in 2016 and now a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, confirmed an impeachment testimony. He personally signed the April 2016 letter, that's the one I just showed you, demanding Ukraine drop the case against the Anti-Corruption Action Center. He also testified he was aware of pressure the U.S. Embassy also applied in Ukraine prosecutors to drop investigations against a journalist named Shabunyan, a parliamentarian named Lishenko, and a senior law enforcement official named Sitnik. Do those names sound familiar? Lishenko and Sitnik? Those are the ones I showed you that were interfering in the 2016 election. George Kent's admitting, yes, we pressured Ukrainian prosecutors to stop investigations into them. Now the media told us this is all debunked. All of these people testified, they said, no, Yovanovitch didn't do anything bad. None of us did anything bad. Litsenko's just a liar. Here he is admitting it in the closed-door testimony that Litsenko's not lying. Shabunyan helped for the Anti-Corruption Action Center that Soros founded, and Lishenko and Sitnik were criticized by a Ukrainian court for interfering in the 2016 election by improperly releasing or publicizing secret evidence in an ongoing case against Trump manager Paul Manafort. So the Ukraine's investigating Lishenko and Sitnik for interfering in the 2016 election to help Hillary. The State Department, George Kent's admitting, we pressured the Ukrainian prosecutors to stop that investigation. Why in the world would the same people that are telling us foreign election interference is an act of war, we have to do everything we can to stop foreign election interference, why are those same people then pressuring a foreign government to not investigate election interference into our own elections? Almost like they're only concerned if it could go against Trump. Solomon continues, as for Sitnik, the head of the NABU Anti-Corruption Police, Kent added, this is quote, George Kent, Democrat witness, State Department person, who is appalled that Trump might try to interfere in prosecutorial decisions in the Ukraine. Here's what George Kent's admitting. Ready? Quote, "We warned both Litsenko and others that efforts to destroy the NABU as an organization, including opening up investigations of Sitnik, threaten to unravel a key component of our anti-corruption cooperation." That's page 70 of George Kent's testimony. You don't believe me? Here. Go to page 70. I linked it there for you. That's George Kent's own testimony. This isn't me, crazy conspiracy theorist. This isn't John Solomon, who's just a terrible Republican liar, or Donald Trump or Rudy Giuliani. This is their witness, the Democrats' witness, admitting, yes, we pressured Ukraine to stop that prosecution. Let me shut my phone sound off. Have you heard anyone talk about this? Yes, there are good people talking about what the Bidens are doing and the corruption and how, people like Yovanovitch and them are corrupt. But they literally stopped the Ukraine. Not only did the U.S. not investigate Ukrainian election interference, not only are they saying it's a crime to investigate it, but they actually pressured the Ukrainian government to not investigate that interference. Now imagine if this was the other way. Imagine that if Russia came out, a court in Russia came out for some reason and said, we have evidence, we're starting a prosecution into these guys that were interfering in the 2016 election to help Trump. And imagine if Trump's State Department then went to Russia and said, listen, we're going to go hard on you. We're going to stop any discussions or cooperation we have with you unless you drop the investigation into this election interference. The media would say, oh, that's a quid pro quo. Oh, Trump's trying to cover the fact that he colluded in the election. Oh, this is the biggest impeach. But when it's the Obama-Biden administration and their holdovers from their administration in the State Department, they say not only was it okay to do that, but when Trump then wanted to fire people like Yovanovitch, that was somehow corrupt. That's unbelievable. Now, there's a lot of names here. There's a lot going on. Let me make my face bigger again. So one of the things I like to do is break the story down as simple as possible. Why is this the fourth biggest scandal? Because we were told the biggest thing we could do is investigate election interference. We spent 3 years, we're still investigating it about Russia. We're still trying to connect it to Trump. Our intel agencies, our media, everybody that controls the cultural narrative, academia, entertainment industry, Silicon Valley. That's what they all told us. And then when we see the exact same type of thing, election interference coming from the other side, these same people not only don't care about it, but they're actually pressuring to stop the investigations into that election interference. And then those people are the actual impeachment witnesses. You can't make this stuff up. It's real simple. If you're out there and you're like, this is too much to wrap my head around, just ask yourself this. Is foreign election interference a big deal and worth investigating? If the answer is yes, then the actions of George Kent, of Yovanovitch, of the people at State Department are corrupt and deserve investigation. Because they are preventing an investigation into foreign election interference that helped their side. Period. So that's why I think, and I don't hear anyone talking about that at all. So the fact that our unelected bureaucrats, the deep state, the establishment, more people connected to Obama, sabotaged legitimate investigations into Ukrainian election interference that benefited them, that's the fourth biggest scandal. That leads into number 3, but this is a different angle on it. Number 3 is the impeachment coup. And in particular, impeaching a president to set a precedent that you can't investigate crimes of the establishment. What is Donald Trump being impeached for? Yes, there are political calculations. There are trying to give red meat to the Democrat base. Yes, all of that's true. Yes, it was time to deflect from the IG report. But when you get to the basis level of what's going on, the Democrats, the media, the intel community, all the people that I call the deep state, what they are doing is setting the precedent. We can investigate the other side non-stop. We could raid their lawyers' offices in the middle of the night. We could go with guns drawn and drag them out whilst we tip CNN off to videotape it. Anything we want, we could do when it comes to investigating our opponents. But if you even try to have the most basic, cursory investigation into them, it is a crime and they will take you down for it. That's what this impeachment is. It's really that simple. Those two things combined. We'll investigate anything you do. We'll spy on you. We'll have FISA warrants against you. We'll send human resources to spy on you. We'll have our media allies run negative stories about you 24/7 about it. We'll smear you. We'll leak and unmask names. All of this. That's all legitimate. But if you want to investigate one iota of what they do, that's Putin's talking points. You're spreading Putin's talking points. There needs to be an impeachment. How dare you want to investigate? This has all been debunked. That's an enormous scandal. What is the impeachment case against Trump? I talked about this a lot. Again, I think that the Republicans could be doing a better job. It is not a quid pro quo. That is what everything they've been trying to prove in the impeachment case is just trying to prove there was a quid pro quo. There is no proof there was a quid pro quo. But we know that the media, academia, the Dems, the intel people, Silicon Valley, the entertainment industry, they don't have a problem with quid pro quos. We know this. Why? Because Biden admitted that's what he and Obama actually did. They said, we've heard Biden's own words. I said, unless you fire this prosecutor, you're not getting the money. I'm leaving in 6 hours. They said, you're not the boss. We don't have to listen to you. I said, call Obama. He'll tell you the same thing. And they fired him. That's Biden's own words. Quid pro quo. By the way, as just a brief aside here, have you noticed a recurring theme that we see over and over now with the Democrats is don't trust your own lying eyes? They tell you, oh, no, you can't believe Biden when he said that. Oh, you can't believe Sergei Leshchenko when he said we interfered in the election. You always have to disregard the actual admissions when it harms their side. But then when they want to go after Trump, his exact words, they say, oh, no, we can't believe his words either, right? He said, I don't want a quid pro quo. No, we can't believe that. Isn't that weird? It's with everything. No, don't, right? Remember Chris Cuomo told, don't read WikiLeaks yourself. It's illegal to read WikiLeaks yourself. Come to us. We'll tell you what to think about it. Don't read the Mueller report yourself. Come to us. We'll tell you what to think about it. Don't read the IG report yourself. Come to us. We'll tell you. Don't listen to Biden's words himself. We'll tell you what they meant. Don't listen to Trump's words himself. Don't read the transcript yourself. We'll tell you. Isn't that odd? I'm not telling you that. I tell you the opposite. Don't just take my word for it. Read the material yourself. Now, who do you think's being more honest generally? The person that's saying, please read the evidence. Or the person saying, no, don't read the evidence. No, don't believe what the people actually said. But that's just an aside. So we know that the quid pro quo is not the crime. Or else all the Democrats and the media, etc., would be saying, yep, what Obama and Biden did was a crime. It's, if you did a quid pro quo for personal reasons, for personal benefit, that's what they're alleging is a crime. Yet there hasn't been one witness, not one claim even, made in the entire impeachment case against Trump to speak to what his intent was. Not one. There was only one witness that directly said he talked to him. That was Sondland. And what did Sondland say he said, despite Schiff's best efforts to pressure him to say otherwise? He said, Trump said, no quid pro quo. I just want Zelensky to do the right thing. As always, the Democrats and their media just assume Trump's motivations. They assume what his intent was. They say if there was a quid pro quo, it must have been for corrupt reasons, therefore Trump needs to be impeached. But with Biden and Obama, they do the exact opposite. They have no proof of what their intent was either. But they just say, it must have been good. The intent must have been good. So it's all been debunked. That's what they say. Again, I don't hear anyone else saying this. It's quite a simple standard. We as Americans, I don't care if you're liberal, if you're conservative, Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Libertarian, we have to agree on some things. We have to have some standard. Here's one I would suggest. When it comes to our tax dollars, large sums of it, being used for foreign aid, anytime that an executive branch official withholds that aid, your and me tax dollars, large sums of it, to ensure a prosecutor's fired who happens to be looking into someone in their family's business, there should be an investigation. That's it. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if it's Biden, if it's Obama, if it's Pelosi. I don't care if it's Schumer. I don't care if it's Bush. Whatever party, whatever gender, I don't care. You know for a fact that if the names were changed and we're supposed to give aid to insert country, maybe we're going to give aid to Haiti, but Trump's got a company in Haiti, and there's a prosecutor that's looking, or Don Jr.'s got a company in Haiti, and there's a prosecutor looking into Don Jr.'s company. And Trump says, we're not going to give you the aid until that prosecutor's fired. It wouldn't matter if a bunch of people in the EU said, well, that prosecutor was corrupt. It wouldn't matter. The Democrats and the media would rightfully say, this needs to be investigated. We can't have the president or the vice president threatening to withhold aid until a prosecutor looking into their family's fired. That's ridiculous. And Biden knows that. The Democrats know that. Every single person knows that. You know it, regardless if you hate Trump or love Trump or anywhere in between. You know that if Trump did what Biden did, there would be calls for an investigation universally. You know it. If Biden was truly innocent, he would say, look, I know this looked bad, but I didn't do anything wrong. By all means, investigate. That's what happened. Remember, all the media have said, well, it did have the appearance of a conflict of interest. That's what even the Democratic witnesses against Trump and the impeachment, they all said there was an appearance of a conflict. Well, if there's an appearance of conflict of interest, and we're talking about $1 billion being withheld, shouldn't there be an investigation? It's that simple. All the other details are irrelevant. Oh, but the EU said, a bunch of people in the EU said that Shokin was corrupt, that prosecutor was corrupt. I don't care. Oh, but the IMF, Christine Lagarde, that was at George Soros' wedding, she said that guy should be fired. I don't care. But Rachel Maddow said that guy should be fired, and Jake Tapper. I don't care. There should be an investigation. Now, that's before, that's just the base level. Then we have all this evidence on top that shows even more corruption. Let me just give you a few. We were told, well, the reason was, this is actually the Democrats and the media's talking point. Actually, Joe Biden wanted his son's company investigated even harder. So by him removing Shokin, he increased the chances that his son would be investigated properly. We're called the crazy conspiracy theorists, those of us that say, yeah, that's stupid. I don't know a father in the world, particularly a mainstream politician, a major politician, that's calling for a bigger investigation into his family going into an election year. That's garbage. It's just garbage. But then on top of that, we now know that that was a lie. They say Shokin wasn't doing anything to the case. I've showed you over and over again, we have the actual documents. We have the actual state media in the Ukraine reporting that in February, Shokin seized property from the owner of that company, Zlochevsky. He seized his property. Almost at the exact same time, the lawyers for Zlochevsky and Burisma, the company Hunter Biden was the CEO of, was on the board of directors of, contacted Obama's State Department. Why? Remember, Obama and Biden, they're saying that this company's corrupt, that the guy that owns this company's corrupt. Yet for some reason, their State Department's talking to this guy's lawyers. The lawyers write him an email. What's the first thing they talk about? Hey, remember, Hunter Biden's on the board of directors here, and we didn't do anything wrong. Is there anything you could do to help us in this investigation? A month later, Joe Biden issues his quid pro quo. Then, as soon as the quid pro quo is accepted, that day, these same lawyers for Burisma that reached out to the State Department, now they're reaching out to the new interim prosecutor in the Ukraine. A week later, they get a meeting with that prosecutor. That prosecutor's notes show that the lawyers for Hunter Biden's company told the new prosecutor, we know that the United States officials that said Shokin was corrupt were lying. They were spreading disinformation. This isn't Donald Trump's lawyers. This isn't Rudy Giuliani. This is Hunter Biden's lawyers admitting, we know that Hunter's dad Joe's a liar. Shokin wasn't corrupt. That's what they admitted. But we'd like to get you to talk to the State Department to try to get this investigation over with. Again, why is the U.S. State Department helping in any way whatsoever lawyers for an organization that they're publicly saying is corrupt? How's the story end? It gets kicked off to the NABU, headed by Artem Sitnik. Remember the guy I just talked about? What was the NABU? So here's just a little brief story. You had this pro-Russian president, Yanukovych. Something like that. I'm bad at pronouncing him. But then you had a revolution. He's ousted. You brought in a pro-Obama, pro-West president named Poroshenko. Eventually, the Ukrainian people got sick of it all and voted for a stand-up comedian named Zelensky. But just know, you had a pro-Russian president, he's ousted, pro-Obama president put in. Right? In the course of that, when we're giving all this aid to our new allies in the Ukraine, because that's what this is all about, geopolitical strategy, and don't be mistaken, our State Department, our intel agencies helped with that coup, because this was a huge strategic asset. If we could get a country that is Obama's ally to now have leadership that's our ally, or Russia's ally to now have leadership that's our ally, that's a huge deal. That's a huge foreign policy win in the geopolitical strategy against Russia. So we're sending them all, the Obama administration sending them all this money. But they had to, it was a quid pro quo. They had to do things. They had to out corruption. One of the things they had to do was start an anti-corruption investigative agency based on our FBI. They called that the NABU, the National Action Bureau of I can't remember exactly what it stands for. National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, I believe. The NABU. But it's basically their FBI. That organization started because Obama and his State Department funded it. That organization not only interfered in the 2016 election to help the Democrats, but over and over was accused of working with Obama's State Department and Yovanovitch, that lady, that's a hero that Trump had no right to fire, to bury investigations into Obama allies. So we know at the very least, the NABU was heavily allied with Obama. They're the ones who get the investigation into Burisma, Hunter Biden's company, that the corrupt Zlochevsky runs. Obama says Zlochevsky's corrupt. Biden says Zlochevsky's corrupt. They both say Burisma's corrupt. We're told, the reason that Burisma and Zlochevsky weren't brought to justice was because this corrupt prosecutor Shokin. So now he's out of the way. Now Obama and Biden's allies have the investigation. So surely Zlochevsky and Burisma was brought to justice, right? Nope. The case was buried. Isn't that odd? So all the evidence points to this was corrupt. All of it. How's the media handled this? How's the intel community handled this? How's the Dems handled this? They've said, you ready? All of that's been debunked. I'll say what part? All of it. Can you give me an example? All of it's been debunked. But what specifically? Has it been debunked that Burisma wrote to the State Department? It's all been debunked. Has it been debunked that Shokin actually did seize the assets? It's all been debunked. Okay, but what about the fact that it went to the NABU and they buried the case? It's all been debunked. That's it! That's all they say! Just remember, I told you over and over again, the media was not only corrupt in the fact that they refused to cover the FBI. Remember? They covered for the FBI. I've said this over and over. The media no longer speaks truth to power. They withhold the truth for the powerful. That's what they do. And I said, not only was it terrible that the media not only refused to cover the abuses of the FBI, but they told people like me and you that if we looked into it and questioned it, because they wouldn't, that we were hurting America. What's the same thing here? The media and the Democrats and the intel agencies, they're saying, not only did they do nothing wrong and we shouldn't look into any of this corruption, but if you do look into it, then you're a criminal. That's why Donald Trump's being impeached. You can't make this stuff up. The media, the Democrats, the intel community control the narrative so well, they're so great at propaganda, that they have made it, if you're a government official, illegal to look into their crimes, and if you're not, immoral to investigate their crimes. Remember, I'm spreading Putin's talking points to them. I must be a Russian agent because I want to look at their corruption. I have a problem with FBI FISA abuses. I'm spreading Putin's talking points. I have a problem with Ukrainian election interference. I'm spreading Putin's talking points. Trump has a problem with them. He wants them investigated. I'll impeach him. That's a crime. That's abuse of power to want to investigate corruption. Remember, they had no problem with the Obama administration spying on Trump's administration, working with foreign governments to get dirt on Trump, unmasking names in the spying they had to their media friends, working with people in the media to smear Trump. And no problem with that. But Trump asked on a phone call that he released the transcript publicly, hey, can you help us see what was going on with this Biden crap? And they say that's impeachable. Remember, another thing you don't hear, if Trump's motivation was really about winning the 2020 election, why wouldn't he wait until Biden won the nomination to ask Zelensky to do this? Wouldn't that have been far more effectual? Why risk breaking the law, as the Democrats say, and abusing power for a guy who's probably not even going to win the nomination? Does anyone seriously think Trump would lose to Biden unless there's corruption? No. So why would Trump risk doing something impeachable? If anything, Trump should be propping up Biden. That's the third biggest scandal. And it's effective. They have criminalized investigating their corruption. That's astounding. That's George Orwell stuff. War is peace. The truth is a lie. We're allowed to break the law and be corrupt and do anything we want. We will investigate you nonstop for made-up crimes, but it's illegal for you to investigate our real crimes. That's the conditions they've set up. And that's the prevailing narrative. The Republicans let them get away with this narrative. Lindsey Graham, we don't need to bring Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in. We don't need them. We don't need to hear them testify. We don't need subpoenas against them. We don't need to investigate them. So that's number 3. Number 2, biggest scandal coming into 2020. We had the entire idea. I've talked about the Russia interference, and we were told how it's the biggest deal, and we'd have nonstop investigations and blah, blah, blah. We had to have a special counselor, Mueller, who led the investigation. We had to have a report. It had to be covered on the media every night, right? We're told repeatedly, despite the fact that the entire idea of Russia collusion with Trump or anyone connected to him was a joke, was a lie, despite that, we're told, the Mueller investigation, the FBI investigation were a huge success. Look at all the people that were prosecuted. And you're like, yeah, but no American was prosecuted with any crime involving the 2016 election. Well, okay, but what about the Russians? What about all those Russian trolls? Now remember, we now know these trolls, as a judge has said, there's no proof whatsoever they were working on behalf of the Russian government. None. So both Mueller and Barr are no longer allowed to make that claim because they're prejudicing juries. So basically just some Russians put some memes up, some of which were anti-Hillary, some of which were anti-Trump, most of which weren't seen till after the election. But that's a big deal. They got charged. That's what we're told. So clearly, the implication is, not from me, not from Rush Limbaugh, not Rudy Giuliani, but from the intel people, the Muellers of the world, the Comeys of the world, the media, the Democrats like the Schiffs, the Schumers, the Pelosi's, that crowd, they think it's a huge deal that we prosecute these Russians if they possibly interfered. That's what they think, right? That's their claims. The second biggest scandal going into 2020 is this. According to Mueller, according to Comey and the FBI, according to the Democrats, according to the media, the Russian agent who was responsible for the start, not only of the investigation, the Russia investigation, but the start of Russian interference into our 2016 election, the single most important person aside from Putin himself, as far as a Russian asset and interfering in our election, according to them, according to the Democrats, according to the intel community, is a man by the name of Joseph Mifsud. The scandal is, Bob Mueller admitted that Mifsud was the Russian asset in charge of this all. Admitted that he was interviewed by the FBI and lied 3 times. A crime, by the way, which they charged Papadopoulos for, they charged Flynn for. So surely, this guy who's worse than anything Flynn and Papadopoulos did, he's actually a Russian spy. Surely they would have at least charged him with the lying to the FBI. But no! Mueller let the Russian asset who started it all off the hook completely. That is unbelievable. That should be front page news every single day. You care about Russian... Hey, Democrats. Hey, Maddow. You care about Russian interference? Why aren't you upset that Bob Mueller let Joseph Mifsud go? The guy who started it all. Same to you, Adam Schiff. Same to you, Eric Swalwell. Not only are they not mad, they don't even mention the guy's name. Why would that be? Huh? Why would you... Remember, let's just take Flynn. Flynn, who, by the way, didn't lie to the FBI, but let's take him, right? Now, if you're the FBI and you're Bob Mueller, and you're truly interested in just solving Russian election interference, that's truly what you're interested in. So much so that you're going to charge a decorated war hero like Flynn for lying to the FBI on something you know has nothing whatsoever to do with election interference. Nothing. Just in hopes that you could get him to flip and possibly find something to incriminate Trump. You're going to go that far. But when you have an actual Russian spy who actually started the election interference, who you prove lied to the FBI 3 times, committed the same thing you accused Flynn of, except 3 times, you let him off the hook. Why go harder after a war veteran that helped serve this country than a Russian spy? When your agenda is to get Russian spies. Why would you do that? There's only 2 explanations. 1, Bob Mueller is the most incompetent person in the history of the world. The problem with that is, and the FBI around him, by the way, the problem with that interpretation of things is, why should we believe anything Mueller said then? Or the FBI? If they're that incompetent, then they let the most important Russian spy go when they had him dead to rights, according to them. Not according to me, according to them. This is the guy who started it all. This is the Russian asset that started it all. We know he lied to the FBI 3 times. If you're going to charge Russian trolls posting on Pokemon Go, why wouldn't you charge this guy? But we still have to believe, oh, Mueller was a stand-up. That investigation, oh, it showed all kinds of corruption. There could be obstruction of justice. Just read the Mueller report. Why? Mueller's so incompetent. He was tasked, number 1, with stopping Russian interference or getting to the bottom of it, and he let the most crucial Russian spy go. So why would I believe anything he has to say? Now, I don't believe Mueller's the sharpest tool in the shed. But he ain't that dumb. That means it must be explanation number 2, which was for some reason they didn't want to charge Mifsud. Why? What incentive would the person tasked with heading Russia interference have for not charging the person who was the biggest Russian interferer? Either Bob Mueller's actually a Russian asset himself, which would have, there's no evidence for, but that would lead to a lot of problems. Or, now hear me out, this might sound crazy, maybe Joseph Mifsud wasn't a Russian spy. Now this is one of those things. And I encourage you, remember this if you don't remember anything else from this video. The media, the Democrats, the establishment, and even people that follow them, even if they're not knowing they're doing this, they are experts at being hypocrites. They are experts at telling you why you should investigate Trump or the other side for everything and anything. But when you can prove their side does the exact same thing, they say, well, here's this little difference. Getting dirt on Russians or getting dirt from Russians against your opponents is a crime. It's treason. It's sedition. There should be impeachment. There should be investigations. Okay, well, that's exactly what Hillary's team did. Yeah, but they paid a law firm to get dirt from Russians on Trump, so that's okay. Are you kidding me? So if you don't remember anything else, remember this. The Democrats, the FBI, the media, they are locked in. Locked in. They say the investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, the investigation into Russian interference and into the Trump team started July 31st, 2016. That's what they said. That is the date. It started because Joseph Mifsud told George Papadopoulos that Kremlin people might have emails about Hillary, and then Papadopoulos supposedly got drunk and told Hillary ally Alexander Downer, who's an Australian politician, that he was told that these Russians might have dirt. Don't let them change that. They're going to try. Because we're going to see the evidence comes out. No. They were looking into it far before that. And then they'll say, well, we didn't mean that it actually started July 31st, 2016. That's what you said. It's what the IG report said. It's what the Mueller report said. It's what the Democrats are saying now. It's what the media is saying. July 31st, 2016. That's when it started. Why did it start? Because Mifsud told Papadopoulos. That was the start of it. That's it. They'll say, remember the Democrats, Baker from the FBI and Comey, they said the IG report was an exoneration of them. Trump owed them, the FBI, an apology. What was their big takeaway? They didn't care that the FBI committed all these abuses. Didn't care about that at all. All they cared about was the part where the IG said the predicate for the investigation, in other words, the misfit talking to Papadopoulos, that being the reason to start the investigation, was legitimate. Now, never mind, the IG doesn't have access to MIFSID. Never mind, the IG doesn't have access to the CIA or to British intel agencies or Italian intel agencies, etc. But just on paper, he said that, okay, that was legit, if that's what happened. So that means they're locked in. That's the start. It was legitimate. So if it turns out Mifsud wasn't a Russian spy, and like Jim Jordan said, he was a Western intelligence asset, maybe someone working for MI5 or MI6 out of the UK, that means the entire basis for the start of not just the Russia interference investigation, but for the start of the Trump-Russia investigation was a lie. It was planted by the CIA and Western intel. That is the biggest scandal in the history of the country. That means Obama's administration, his intel agencies, set the entire thing up. It's, in effect, they planted evidence to frame Papadopoulos, to frame the Trump administration as an excuse to investigate and spy on them, which led to raiding their lawyers in the middle of the night, charging for unrelated crimes, dragging on for almost the entirety of the first term of Trump's administration. I challenge anyone. I don't care what your following is, what your political party is, whatever. Someone give me a credible explanation for why Joseph Mifsud wasn't charged. The only thing I've heard, the only answer that's been given to me that's somehow defensive of this is, well, they knew that Mifsud would have never been extradited anyways. They knew those 12 Russian trolls wouldn't be extradited, but they charged them. So that clearly wasn't a reason to not charge. So then, now what's the excuse? Would Mueller say, I won't talk about why we decided to charge or not charge people? Really? Isn't that exactly why you did what you did? To explain to the American people who interfered and what punishment they would get? But all of a sudden, you're not going to talk about this. And Jim Jordan was right. He nailed him down on this. Are we going to find out he's Western intelligence? Now what's the story with Mifsud? Oh, he's dead. He's presumed dead. He's presumed gone. Isn't that convenient? A little too Epstein-esque, if you ask me. Huh. Every time we got someone who's about to out corruption at the highest levels from the establishment, oh, they're dead. Just look the other way. Again, let me stress the importance. Why is this important? Because if you think it's corrupt, and if Mifsud was MI6 or if he was Western intelligence, it's literally the biggest political scandal in the history of the country. Because it means that the FBI spread a rumor, or the intel agencies, let me say, spread a rumor to a volunteer in Trump's campaign who heard that rumor and then allegedly told another asset of the intel agencies, this Downer guy who's a Clinton associate, the rumor he heard that was sourced by the intel agency, and that was used as a reason to spy on Trump's team and to investigate them. Imagine if an undercover police officer comes up to you, you're at a ball game, and an undercover police officer comes up to you and says, hey, I heard that guy tailgating next to you has drugs, and you're like, huh. And then another undercover police officer's on the other side of you, and he's like, hey, what'd that guy just tell you? You're like, oh, he said those tailgaters have drugs. And they cuff you and go, you're under arrest. You're aware of drug activities going on here. That's what they did to the Trump team. That's Obama's intel agency. Obama. That's what I've said all along. I said this starting October 26, 2017. If Obama's intel community used unverified opposition research to spy on their opponent's candidate for president, it's the biggest political scandal in the history of the country. That has turned out to be true, and so much worse. But back then, when I'm writing back then, October 2017, I said something. I said, let me be clear here. Hillary isn't the real enemy in this story. And let me just clarify this for you. My take on it is this. I don't care that Hillary played Christopher Steele. I don't care that she tried to get dirt on Trump from Russians. I also wouldn't have cared if Don Jr. got dirt on Hillary in Trump Tower. Didn't care at all. At all. Now, the Democrats did. They said that that's illegal behavior, but they forgive Hillary for doing it for some reason. But me personally, I don't care. The illegality and the immorality of it comes when Obama and his agencies used that dirt to spy on their opponent. Hillary getting the dirt, whatever. Candidates get dirt on their opponents. I'm not saying I like Hillary. I have no love lost for her. But she's not the real villain here. It's Obama. He knew. More and more comes out every day. McCabe said he knew. Obama knew. He wanted to become aware of what was going on. He knew. He knew that this was being used to spy on Trump's team. That's the criminality. That's the part we should be worried about. The person in position to wield these levers of power, using the intel agencies personally to go after the person he doesn't want to see elected. Hillary's irrelevant to that discussion. Now, yes, maybe she knew Obama was doing that, but that's like if your boss goes to bat for you and does something corrupt to make sure you get promoted. I'm not really concerned about you. It's your boss that did the corruption. Yes, Hillary would have benefited, but it's Obama. That's who's responsible. Even if you don't believe Mifsud was Western intelligence, right? And I'm always sure, even if you hate Trump and you think the investigation into him is legitimate and you want him impeached and you think Russia interfered and you think that Russia interference is the biggest deal, okay? And I have friends like that, believe it or not. I'm capable of separating politics and still having friendships. I'll get to you in a second here, Recon. Even if you believe that, right? If you're listening right now, you should be furious that the FBI and Mueller allowed the agent for Russia that started this whole interference campaign off the hook. You should be furious. Why didn't Mueller go after Mifsud? He admitted he's the one who started it. He was the Russian spy. He admitted that he lied 3 times to the FBI. We know that they charged people they knew wouldn't be extradited like these Russian trolls. We know that they charged people like Flynn and Papadopoulos for lying to the FBI. So why leave the Russian spy who started the entire interference campaign off the hook? Even if you hate Trump, why aren't you asking that question? And if you hate Trump and you're thinking, yeah, that is a good point. Why didn't they get missing? Ask yourself this. Why aren't your Democratic politicians furious? Why aren't your Democratic media like Maddow and Jake Tapper? Why aren't they furious? It's almost like they don't care that the most central Russian figure was left off the hook. But at the same time, if you listen to them, that's all they care about, stopping Russian interference. Now, Recon, yes, Hillary paid for the dossier. I don't care about that. Let's say, theoretically, Trump went out in the 2016 election and he paid some journalist or he paid some former spy to get dirt on Hillary, and it said Hillary was getting peed on and she was an agent of China and blah, blah, blah. Would that, if Trump did that, Recon, would you say, oh, that's it, then Trump should be removed from office? No, you would say Trump has the right to dig up dirt if that's what he wants to do. No problem. It's when the actual official agencies use that dirt without verifying. That's the crime that's committed. The getting the dirt, the candidates seeking dirt in their opponents, I don't care about that. Every candidate does it. Right? It's like this absurd argument that the Democrats and the media make all the time. Trump was willing to accept Russia's help. What does that mean? The Democrats were willing to accept the FBI's help when they engaged in corrupt FISA activities. Does that mean that every Democrat that said, oh, the FBI's looking into Trump, they're corrupt for that? No. If someone releases dirt on your opponent, for example, okay, here's like a real world example that could happen. I personally don't care about your sex life. I'm going to be running for office at some point in the future. Whoever I'm against, I won't care about their sex life. I'm not going to dig up dirt on their sex life. I don't care. But if a mistress of them comes out and says, hey, this guy's cheating on his wife, I slept with him, and that bumps my numbers up and I win, does that mean somehow I'm immoral? No, I didn't seek that help or anything. Now, in the same token, even if I did seek that help, which I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't, because I don't care. But that doesn't make me immoral. If I sought that help and then once I found dirt that he was cheating and I was the incumbent and I used my position of power to force investigative agencies to investigate a guy for adultery, that's corruption. So what I'm saying is, I don't care, and I understand people differ on this. If you think getting dirt from foreign people on your opponent is a crime, then fine. You might say Trump's guilty. You might, but then you have to say Hillary's guilty. I choose to be consistent and say I don't think either of them committed a crime. I don't. I don't think Hillary Clinton paying for the Steele dossier was a crime. I don't think that. I think the FBI under Obama using that information to spy on Trump was the crime. Therefore, Hillary's not the person that I'm seeking to be held to justice. It's Obama. It's Comey. It's all the people that signed up on the FISA warrant. It's that hand-picked team that Horowitz talks about that was hand-picked by McCabe that engaged in the corruption. That's what I mean by that. So the second biggest scandal going into 2020. Misfit was either Western intelligence, which is incredible, or even if you don't believe that and he was a Russian asset, why, oh why, have the FBI and Mueller left him off the hook? I've heard rumors about 8chan starting the P dossier, and it could very well be true. Anybody who looked at the allegations in the first place from the Steele dossier, just reading it, knew that it was amateur hour from the get-go. Anybody. I knew it. You people all knew it. Regardless if it came from 8chan or some guy at a bar. What, like, it's now being claimed? Yeah, Recon, but those are different issues. Her server, that's a legitimate issue to look into. Did she use influence to make sure that Obama's FBI didn't investigate her properly? Maybe, but Obama's still the villain in that. Obama's still the one, his agencies are the ones that engaged in corruption. Let me ask you this, Recon. Did you think that Don Jr. should be charged when he tried to get dirt from a Russian on Trump or on Hillary? Did you think that? He didn't get the dirt, but if he would have, if Veselnitskaya had met him in Trump Tower and said, look, we have dirt that Hillary engaged in some kind of unlawful donation with the Clinton Foundation, do you think it would have been a crime for Don Jr. to do that? I don't. I don't at all. So I have to be consistent. I don't like Hillary, but I don't think it was a crime for her to put feelers out and say, we'll pay for dirt on Trump. I don't think that's a crime. I think it's a crime that the Obama administration used that unverified dirt that they knew was paid for by Hillary to spy on Trump. That's just my take on it. But nonetheless, that's the second biggest scandal, and that's a huge one. Every single American, regardless if you like Trump or hate Trump, regardless if you think Mifsud was Western intelligence or Russian intelligence, should be furious that he wasn't held to account. And if, as we'll see with the last example, the biggest scandal, I'm sick and tired with incompetence being used as an excuse to somehow why we should not be concerned about this. Hillary was not working for the government at the time she paid for the dossier. She was a candidate. So, now, number one, the single biggest scandal, and I'll explain in great detail why it's the biggest scandal, is easily FBI corruption. The story I just talked about, Mr. and Mueller, I mean, we're literally talking about possibly the CIA and other Western intelligence groups setting the stage to spy on Trump's campaign. Planting evidence, basically. Unbelievably, I think the FBI corruption is worse. And the reason is, it's going to affect so many other stories. Because it's not just the FBI, it's the intelligence agencies as a whole. And basically, we see all of these offshoot... Okay. So, I'll just get to this real quick. Your argument is, Recon, if you have a security clearance, you're not allowed to get dirt in your opponent. That's your argument. Not allowed. What if she didn't? What if Hillary didn't personally sign it, but it was someone in the DNC? Someone in Hillary's team? Then it would have been okay. Hillary personally couldn't sign the check to get dirt on Trump, but Hillary's associate, Abedin, could get... Abedin, it would be okay for Abedin, or whoever didn't have a security clearance, to go ahead and get dirt. It's okay for example, Chelsea Clinton. It would have been okay for her child to pay. Is that your argument? That Chelsea Clinton could have paid Fusion GPS to then pay Christopher Steele to get dirt on Trump from Kremlin. That's no problem. That's totally fine. It's okay for Don Jr. to get dirt on Hillary from the Kremlin. But if if Hillary herself tries to get the dirt, then it's a crime. I'm just not buying it. I don't buy that at all. At all. Nope. Don't buy it. It makes no sense to me. And to me, that's as nitpicky as what the Democrats get. Oh, well, the reason it was wrong for Don Jr., as long as you pay an intermediary, it's okay. Look, it's real simple. Either it's legitimate to get dirt from foreign people on your opponent, or it's not. I don't want to hear, well, there's a slight nuance if you paid an intermediary to do it, or if you have a security clearance, you're not allowed. That's all irrelevant to me. You can get the dirt. I don't care about it. Get the dirt. Using the dirt's the problem. Hillary Clinton was not in government. Hillary Clinton did not have the ability to force the FBI to spy on Trump's team. That was Obama. That was James Comey. Those are the people that committed the crime. When we focus on Hillary, all it does is it leaves people in the center go, this is what happens when you focus on Hillary here. Then you say, the average person's going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, so Hillary broke the law by getting dirt on Kremlin officials from Trump. Well, then I guess if Don Jr. tried to get dirt from Kremlin officials on Hillary, that would be bad as well. Then we just muddy the waters. There is a real and clear crime here. Specific. It's not muddyable. It's not vague. Obama's FBI spied on Trump using unverified opposition research. Period. That's the crime. I hate Hillary too. I think Hillary broke all kinds of laws, particularly in the server business. But when we say, oh, no, she needs to go down because she paid Christopher Steele, that's... You're signing... Be careful what you wish for, just like I tell the Democrats all the time. Did Trump pay Giuliani to try to get dirt on people from Ukraine? His private lawyer? Uh-oh. Right? Why is that legitimate then? It just muddies the waters. It's just, to me, it's okay to get dirt in your opponent. It's that simple. If it's not okay, then okay, maybe you could charge Trump Jr. and you charge Hillary. It's the actual Obama administration and his intel agencies that I feel broke the law. I'm with you 100%, Recon, that I think Hillary got away with so many crimes over and over again. But this isn't the one to go after. It's just not. And when you go after her for slight things like this, it belittles. What are you saying, Milo's not plausible? Let me see if I can go up. But anyways, that's my feeling on it. So the FBI corruption is the number one scandal. Oh, it's definitely still the swamp, Recon. I'm with you 100%. And don't be mistaken. I know that Hillary was personally talking with top Obama level people. But it's like this. It's like you don't blame the lobbyists most of the time. You blame the corrupt government official that's listening to the lobbyists. That's the real problem. That's where we need to focus. And I think so many people are just so gung-ho to take Hillary down that we never talk about. You hear about it all the time. Lock her up, lock her up. What about Obama? That's where the focus should be. He's the one who was in charge when the corruption happened. So that's why I put my focus there. So on the FBI corruption, let's just get into it. The FBI, according to the IG report, we already knew that they used unverified opposition research to spy on Trump's campaign. That in itself is one of the biggest political scandals in the history of the country. But now we found out through the IG report that there were 17 abuses that they did in the process of that. Now, that's 17 abuses. It's actually far more than that because there were over 60 abuses within the Woods procedures that occurred as well. The Woods procedures are this idea that you have to re-verify the evidence that you've submitted. Every 3 months to get a FISA warrant, you have to resubmit the application. So for those of you who don't know, a FISA application is going to a foreign intelligence surveillance court to be able to spy on an American citizen because you have rights. So our government could spy on, a Syrian national or a Russian national or even a UK national, and they don't have to worry about violating their rights because they're not American citizens. But you as an American citizen, if you're an American citizen, you're protected by those rights. So they have to go to a court and argue that basically you're a spy for a foreign country so that they can spy on you and take away your rights, such as your Fourth Amendment right to privacy. So that's what's going on. The FBI 60 times in the reevaluation of that, because every 3 months then you have to resubmit the application, 60 times they made mistakes, had abuses, went against FBI procedure in re-verifying that information. So that's 60 times in the Woods procedures, 17 times in the actual submissions of the applications. Many of those 17 were done multiple times though. So for example, the IG report outlined 7 that were done with the initial application. Those 7 were then repeated all 3 other times the application was re-received. Oh, yeah, Milo, yeah. You're right, it is proven. That's what I'm saying. It's Obama. He was at the top. It's those people that were in government that are the actual criminals here. Hillary wasn't there at the time. She benefited from it. I'm sure she would have exerted her influence to get it done, but I'm less concerned with the guy who tells the cop, hey, if you drop the speeding ticket, I'll buy you a pie, than I am with the cop that dropped the speeding ticket. That's my point on it. But right, Bradley, and that's the point. Because here's the end game. Someone will be scapegoated. That's eventually how this ends, right? The abuses are so evident and so in your face at this point that someone will be scapegoated. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be Hillary Clinton, but the problem of focusing so much of our energy on her is it allows the actual people, like you're saying there, Recon, the FISA judges, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Baker, Rebecca, Rosenstein, McCabe, Obama. All of those people will be left off the hook because we'll scapegoat someone. That's why it's important to constantly focus. These people that were in charge, they're the corrupt ones. So here's just a couple of the FISA abuses. I'll just give you two. One, they go to the FISA court. Now remember, it's now been all the excuses that were given. Remember, they said, oh, there's no way the Steele dossier was used to get a warrant to spy on someone in Trump's team. Well, that's a lie. Well, if it was used, I'm sure it was verified. Well, that's a lie. Well, if it was used, I'm sure that it wasn't the only thing. There had to be other things that were willing to get. Well, that was a lie, because the IG shows this was essential and central to getting the FISA warrant. So it was all lies. Now, everybody who said, they admitted the reason they said there's no way this could have happened was because they assumed if this did happen, it would be horribly corrupt. Well, now that we know it did happen, those people are all silent. So what did they do? Imagine this. Carter Page at one point, and I heard this over and over, back in October of 2017, they said, well, actually, Carter Page was being spied on before because he had contact with Russians. So that proves that this was okay. Well, it turns out that what had happened was this. Carter Page was this naive guy. He was doing business in Russia. He's talking to some Russian people. He gets caught up in intercepts from the CIA. The CIA pulls him in and says, you know, you're dealing with some dangerous Russian criminals here. Carter Page says, oh. So they say, would you wear a wire so we can help bring these people down? Carter Page says, yes. The CIA later gives him positive remarks, says he was a good asset for us. He helped lead to the prosecution of several Russian criminals. The FBI takes that story and just tells the FISA court, as further proof that Carter Page might be a Russian asset, look at all these shady connections he had to Russians. But they leave out, yeah, and he wore a wire to bring them down for the CIA. So one reasonable FBI agent, according to the IG report, the first warrant goes through with this information. This reasonable FBI agent's troubled by it. He basically says, wait a minute. Wasn't Carter Page working with the CIA when he did this? Isn't that relevant? Again, go back to you personally. Your local police community asks you, could you wear a wire and go talk to your neighbor? We think he's selling drugs. Sure. You put on the wire, you talk to your neighbor. Then a year later, your local police force says, oh, you're corrupt. You talk to that corrupt neighbor. Well, yeah, you asked me to. So the FBI agent that's legitimate says, didn't he work for the CIA? So he reaches out to the CIA. He gets an email back from the CIA. The email says, yes, he was an asset for the CIA. The FBI lawyer then sees this email and changes it to say, no, he was not an asset for the CIA. So if you're a FISA judge, and don't get me wrong, the FISA judges are horribly corrupt, as I can get to in a minute, but if you're a FISA judge and you're like, oh, well, the CIA says no, this guy never was a CIA asset. Okay, so he was just talking to a bunch of criminal Russians for no reason. Oh, and you're absolutely right, Recon and Milo. Judge Collier, the note that she put out, oh, we're going to look into this, is garbage. They knew since 2018. In some cases, 2017. They knew. Nunez knew during the memo. Admiral Rogers was talking to the FISA court long before this, talking about the corruption, yet they did nothing. They didn't do their own investigation. They waited until the IG report outed, but how did people like me on a couch know? Some nobody in October 2017, I knew, but I'm supposed to believe that the FISA court judges didn't know? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. But anyways, that's number one they did. And they re-upped the application with that lie. They changed the evidence to say the opposite of the truth. Now I thought, and that's what you heard about. Oh, that one guy, that one lawyer might go down. What's his name, Kleinsmith? Oh, Kleinsmith's going to go down. And what coming out? Oh, it's terrible we had this bad apple. They knew. Kleinsmith wasn't the end-all be-all. It went to Comey. It went to the people, Rosenstein, the people above him. There were at least 5 people that would have read that information after him, and they all knew Carter Page, from the time they submitted the first application, did work with the CIA. So when they saw this email from a CIA saying he didn't work for us, every one of them knew that wasn't true. Now, they might not have known that Kleinsmith altered the email, but they knew that, at the very minimum, that the email the CIA agent sent was not true. So instead of stopping and saying, wait a minute, let's contact this CIA agent that sent us this email because this information's not true, we know it. If they'd have done that, the CIA agent would have said, that's not the email I sent. I said the exact opposite. And then they could have got to the bottom of it before they submitted the application. But they didn't do that. Why? Because they wanted to spy on Carter Page. So they welcomed the lie. Oh, great. Someone lied? Great. Good. Send it to the court. Wasn't me. I didn't lie. I'll claim ignorance later. Oh, that's terrible. Someone lied. I didn't know. What'd you want me to do? My job and verify the info? But don't try to scapegoat that one guy and be like, oh, it was all him. That's garbage. Now, as bad as that is, it seems difficult to think it could get worse than that. It does. And even the IG mentions this second one as the worst. And I've talked about this before, so I'll try to go through it quick. But to understand this, that we've already acknowledged, the IG said that the entire FICE application was based on Christopher Steele and his reporting. Christopher Steele had no firsthand knowledge of anything. None. He didn't personally see Carter Page do anything, or see Michael Cohen do anything, or see Trump do anything. He never even claimed to have done that. His claim was, I talked to people that said this. For example, 2 Kremlin sources. That's where all of this dirt about the actual crimes came from. Right? So Steele, most of the claims of the criminality, and look, here was the problem with the Steele dossier, and there's people that still say a lot of stuff in the Steele dossier was true, but it was publicly aware stuff. For example, they said that Carter Page was in Russia. That was publicly available information. There were newspaper stories about it. He was giving public speeches at a university. So the fact that that was included in there, that's irrelevant. No one cares about that information. If I write a memo tonight and I say yesterday's lotto numbers were blah, 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 and on that same day, Hillary Clinton sacrificed 5 children to Satan, I don't get to say, but look, I was right about the lotto numbers, so that must prove that I was right about the child sacrifices. Why do you have to explain this to people? Like, it's so ridiculous. Oh, but the dossier was right about all kinds of things. For example, there's a person named Donald Trump, right? That was right about that. I guess you're right. It was correct about that. But it's wholly irrelevant. Was it correct about the crimes that occurred? No, it was wrong in every single instance. Anyways, the FBI, after the initial application, finally gets around to talking to the subsource. Now, this is important. Say you witness an arson, or you're in your town, there's an arson, a building, whatever, you don't know if it's an arson. You see a building catch fire, right? And I live in a small town. I'm assuming it's the same all over the world. People gossip. Oh, what happened? Did you hear? So in the context of you gossiping, you talk to one of your other neighbors and they're like, I saw that, there was a Bronco that left. 3 guys in hoodies. I saw them getting in a Bronco and speeding away. So then the police come and talk to you. You're like, I didn't see anything, but my neighbor said he saw this Bronco with 3 guys with hoodies. Okay, you're now irrelevant to the discussion. The police will go talk to the neighbor, and the neighbor might say, no, I was just BSing to sound good. Then your claim about a Bronco and 3 guys in hoodies no longer matters, because the neighbor admitted, I made that up, or it wasn't true. That's exactly what happened here. Steele's like, I heard all this gossip. So the FBI goes, okay, we better spy on Trump's team. So they do it, and then they're re-upping the application, and they say, well, we'll talk to the guy that Steele heard the gossip from. And so, my dog's saying so. So they talk to the guy, and the guy says, yeah, that gossip's all garbage. We were just joking about the pee thing, Actually, Trump's team, to my knowledge, never had any inappropriate conversations with the Kremlin. This was just all rumor mongering. Literally says, I can't believe the FBI used this. In other words, he said that everything Steele reported about these crimes was garbage. That's what the source said. Now, if the FBI wasn't corrupt, that would have been the end of it. They would have not sought to reseek the application to spy on Carter Page. They'd have said, oh man, well, that's that. But they didn't. They still were like, we're going to go to the FISA court. But surely then they'll go to the FISA court, and the FISA court's like, so you talk to the subsource. Yep. So Steele's irrelevant at this point. Steele says, this guy told me X. Okay, so they get the warrant. Then for the next application, they go to that guy, and that guy says, no, X isn't true. It doesn't matter that Steele said the guy told me X now. Steele has no first-hand knowledge. All that matters is what this source says. He's the one that was the reason for the application. That source says, no, it's not true. That's it. End of investigation. But the FBI kept going. So, when they tell this to the FISA court, the court's going to be like, well, there's no reason for this application. The only person with direct knowledge says it didn't happen. So what's the FBI do? They say, hey, FISA court, we talked to the subsource. And the FISA judge says, oh, okay. And what they say? And the FBI said, we just want to let you know we thought they were really honest. Sweet, says the FISA court. And what they say? That's it. So now if you're the FISA court, you're left with the impression, oh, so Steele said this guy said X. You went and talked to the guy. You thought the guy was honest. Therefore, the guy must have said X. The FBI literally told the FISA court, we talked to the subsource. The subsource told the truth and left out the fact. The thing that the subsource told the truth about was that we were wrong about everything. They literally told the opposite of the truth. Now, this is how I would liken this. Say that there's a crime committed and there's a gun. And I get charged for the crime, right? And they say, we're going to take your fingerprints. We found a print on the gun. You're going down, Rob. So they analyze the print, and it turns out the print's not mine. Now, it would be a horrible injustice for the police to withhold that information. To just never mention the print again. That would be grotesque abuse of power. But what's even worse would be to say, yeah, there was a print. Yeah, we took it. And yeah, it was your print. That's more than just ignoring exculpatory evidence. That's telling the opposite of the truth. That's what the FBI did in both of those instances. That's shocking. That's appalling. This would be bad if they did it to me. If they did it to you, listening to me. Random Joe Schmo American. To do this to a presidential candidate and then president and people working on his team based on opposition research that you know is not true, like the FBI did. That's staggering. Not only is Trump right when he says, if they could do it to me, imagine what they could do to you. You literally can't manufacture a story of more pervasive, dangerous election interference than that. Anything you could conjure up Putin or China doing would pale in comparison to the most powerful investigative agency in the history of the world being weaponized, breaking the law, telling the opposite of the truth to spy on the opponent's political campaign. Yeah, you're exactly right, Bell. Who was it? Was it Goebbels or someone said, the bigger the lie, the more easier people swallow it? That's the truth. It's so hard for people to believe that corruption of this magnitude took place. Now, on its own, that's devastating. That means that everything that stemmed from that, all of the accusations of Trump-Russia collusion, all based on a lie. All of it. The FBI willingly went through the lie. We went through in part 5, or the number 5 example of the scandal. This was Kremlin disinformation. It was how it was used. Every day it was used as a media stuff story. It was used to spy on Trump's team, right? Went through that all. This enough is unbelievable. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. So this occurs. What's the FBI say? What's the FBI leaders that were there at the time, like Bakers and Comey, say? What's the current FBI leader, Wray, say? Do they say we're ashamed? This is despicable. We can't believe it happened under our watch? No. They say it's vindication. They demand an apology from Trump. Christopher Wray, the current head of the FBI, is out there lamenting the names people are calling the FBI. Christopher Wray should be out there, and I've said this more angry, but I'm still just as angry, trust me. Christopher Wray should be out there saying, wait, what happened? Oh, but Mr. Wray, are you upset that Trump said blah, blah, blah? I don't care what Trump said, or any American. They have every right to have no faith in us. This is disgusting. We have no right to demand respect when this kind of crap's going on. That's what a real leader would say. They wouldn't say, we don't like the names that are being called. These people are good people. It was just a few mistakes. That's not what someone who was concerned with ending the corruption would say. The media wouldn't be going along with it. If this was the Bush administration that did this to Obama, you think they'd be so nonchalant? You think they'd be calling it a victory? But that's what's happened. This one scandal encapsulates all of the others. It shows the corruption from the deep state. It shows the corruption from the establishment at every level. The Democrats don't care about this corruption. Have you heard any of them really talking about it? The media doesn't care. They brushed it off as soon as they could. Academia doesn't care. The entertainment industry doesn't care. Silicon Valley doesn't care. The intel agencies don't care. Comey doesn't care. He's celebrating. So's Baker. Celebrating. This is where you get into truly dystopia 1984 stuff. We live in a society where a damning report could come out and say the FBI under Obama told the opposite of the truth to spy on the opposition's presidential candidate's team. And it's hailed as a victory for the FBI. And the prevailing narrative is Trump and his supporters were stupid and should apologize. Yeah, you're right, Recon. It's #resist by any means necessary. So what? Some people did something, like you said, she said about 9/11. Same here. Hey, it was in the cause of a greater good, right? Bringing down Trump. Trump's terrible, so who cares? No, I could sit here and talk to you. Well, wait a minute. If you're okay with that, then what happens when the FBI does it to a candidate you like? I do that all the time. We know. People are smart enough to know that. But it gets to more than that, than just the corruption. Let me throw some other... I wrote these down. Here's some scandals that didn't make the list. The OPCW admitting that they faked the Syria chemical attacks, a whistleblower. Now that's being buried. Epstein killing himself. The Vegas shooter. We have no idea what his motives were. Flynn being charged when he really didn't lie. Hillary's email scandal and her getting left off the hook for it. You remember the Awan scandal? That worked for, what's her name? I can picture her. You know what I'm talking about, though. What do all those have in common? It all has to do with the intel agencies. In our belief of them. Remember, we had to trust the OPCW. We had to trust the Syria bombing, right? What's up, High Board? Yeah, and you're right, Dash. Obama was just... I wrote a thing way, way back, and I called it Bush's third term. And it was for the 2008 election. And people were like, oh, Rob's going to say that McCain would be Bush's third term. I was saying, no, it was Obama. It was Bush's third term. What's up, Claudia? Nice to have you. Epstein. What's central to that? FBI. What's central to the Vegas shooter? Who investigated that? FBI. Who found Flynn guilty of lying? The FBI. The Hillary email scandal. Who investigated that? The FBI. The Iwan situation. Who investigated it? The FBI. Now, I want you to think about this real carefully, right? There is no doubt in my mind that the FBI behaved with corruption. None. But for a moment, I'm going to suspend reality, and I'm going to go with the Democrat and the media and the intel community's talking point. This is what makes this scandal absolutely staggering. See, I could be Alex Jones and I come on and say the turn of the frog's gay. Or, I could say something that, 9/11 was an inside job. Those would be huge things, right? But you could write it off because you could say, you don't have proof and you're a conspiracy theorist. What makes this scandal unique is I don't have to use one talking point. I don't have to use one fact that is not agreed upon by the Democrats, the media, the FBI, the IG, the rest of the intel community, the State Department, academia, Silicon Valley Internet. I could use their admitted version of what happened. Them, their words, their version, their narrative. And with just that, it's the biggest scandal. There is no questioning, no doubt. Their version of events is this. This is why this was a win for the FBI. You ready? Oh, that's not corruption. It was just incompetence. I look sweet. Thank you. I think sweaty would be a more appropriate. Now think about it. First they would say, oh, it's just clerical errors. There was just some clerical errors that were made. Just some mistakes by some people at the FBI. It was just incompetence. Now, I just went through what they did. These weren't clerical errors. A clerical error, maybe you could argue it was a clerical error of, we emailed the CIA to say, is this guy an asset? And they got back to us, and we forgot to say that they got back to us. Maybe you could say that was a clerical error. It's still an incredible abuse, but maybe you could say that. But when you admit, yes, they got back to us, but we changed the email to say the opposite of what is true, that's not a clerical error. When you talk to the subsource, maybe if you forgot to include we talked to the subsource, but when you talk to them, tell the FISA court you talked to them, tell the FISA court they told the truth, but just forget to include, oh, and what they told the truth about was everything we claimed was wrong. That's not a clerical error. Wholesome things. That's corruption. But we're going with the Democrat and the media talking point. So it's not corruption, it's just incompetence. Now ask yourself, what is the FBI? And by the way, this is indicative, like I said, of the CIA, of the other intel agencies as well. But what is the FBI tasked with? This is the agency that's tasked with bringing down organized crime, foreign terrorists that are trying to attack us, sexual predators, white-collar crime that could bankrupt you or this country. The premier investigative agency in the history of the world, with the power to totally violate your rights, bankrupt you by just an accusation, spy on any of your calls, etc. The last line of defense, we're told, of our country. That's the FBI. And the media and the FBI leadership and the Democrats are celebrating that they are saying that they are so incompetent, not low-level people, 3 separate hand-picked teams of the highest people in the FBI, 3 teams, straight up to the very top of the leadership, are so incompetent that they don't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it actually says. And our country is celebrating this right now as a win. Oh, they're not corrupt. They're just horribly incompetent. Thank God. Yeah, you're right, Recon. It is obstruction and treason. That's exactly what it is. Now, the same people that will tell me, they'll read the IG report just like I read it, and they'll say, no, it was just incompetence. These same people then will say this. Go look at the IG report testimony, the IG testimony, Horowitz. Almost verbatim. One of the things you have to tip your cap to the Democrats for is they're very good at having talking points and staying on point. And that's effective because you have to understand people like me and you that maybe don't have time to look in depth in things, these talking points hit home. So when you hear this, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, the guy that's working 9 to 5 and doesn't have time to pay attention, he just, eventually that seeps into kind of the zeitgeist of the things that are occurring around. It's the public narrative. So what did they say? Every single Democrat, I believe, at one point when they were questioning Horowitz said something, but none of this discredits anything in the Mueller report. And we know that it was Russia that interfered, correct? Even the Republicans were acknowledging Russia interfered. Didn't discredit the Mueller report, right? Yeah, Jussie Smollett would be another example. Who's in charge of looking at that? FBI. So I have to believe, this is what the Democrats want me to believe. The FBI is so incompetent, they don't know at the top level, dozens of them didn't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. They just didn't know. They thought that was legit. They thought that's how you did things. It was just regular old incompetence. But they're so good at their job, they got to the bottom of the hacks of the server. We have to believe them. How dare you question their work on the server? Why would I believe anything they ever do? Why would I believe that they have an intellectual level capable of figuring out who did any hack, let alone a hack supposedly by a sophisticated foreign nation? They don't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. That's stupidity and incompetence of such a grotesque level that you wouldn't trust anything that that person or that agency ever did again. If you hired an employee and you said, hey, I want you to, your job's going to be to get me the sales figures from last quarter, right? And the sales figures were terrible. But they present them to you and they totally change it and they say the sales figures were awesome. And you're like, oh, that's great. And so you make a bunch of decisions. Then you lose a ton of money. And you go back to them and you're like, wait a minute. I started looking at these sales figures. You literally changed the evidence to say the exact opposite. It said they were terrible, and you wrote that they were awesome. And they'd say, yeah, I know, I'm just incompetent. Anyways, ready for that next big project? You'd say, no, you're fired. How could you be so stupid? You're out. I don't believe any of the work you did. We're going to have to go back and recheck everything you've done. You're literally bragging? Yep, I'm so stupid, I changed everything. Yeah, that's me. That's what I did. How dare you say I was corrupt? I'm just incompetent. You owe me an apology. That would never fly in the real world, but somehow in the clown world that we live in, these are the people tasked with protecting us. These are the politicians tasked with supposedly helping give the will of the people. The media that's supposed to be holding truth to power to inform the people. And they're celebrating. Yes, it was just good old-fashioned incompetence. The FBI didn't, think about it. It'd be really tough. Imagine tomorrow you're put in the FBI, for some reason you're taken out of your job. And they fly you to, where you at, Quantico. Whoop, you're in Quantico, right? And they're like, okay, here's the first order of business. We're investigating this possible mafia person. we're going to put you on the phone with a local investigator, local police chief, who's going to give you information about this Don that we're investigating. You pick up the phone, they're like, hey, it's the police chief, police chief here in Chicago. Yeah, we're here to talk about John Smith, John Smith. Turns out, he didn't do anything wrong. He's not involved in the mafia whatsoever, so make sure you tell him that. And you're like, okay, what are the chances you think, because you're brand new, you're green, this is your first day in the FBI, heck, you didn't even go to school for this, you got plucked out of whatever your job is. What do you think the chances are, because of your lack of knowledge, you'd say, I'm going to tell the FBI leaders that Chicago police chief said he is in the mafia, instead of isn't? What are the chances that you would be that incompetent? I would say 0%. I would say that anyone, even a child, would know, oh, I just repeat what that person told me. Yeah, that guy said he was in the he wasn't in the mafia. That's it. But these people are the best and brightest, we're told. Great people. Hand-picked teams. 3 hand-picked teams consisting of 5 people or more at the highest levels of the FBI. And they didn't know. They didn't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. Yeah, you're right, Milo. That is tampering. But it's not just changing that email. It's also interviewing the subsource and then telling the court, oh, the subsource was truthful, but not telling the court, and he said everything we reported was a lie. And Recon, you're right. Now we start to get to the real meat of the problem, right? What about White Church? What about the Vegas shooting? What about all of this stuff? This isn't me. This isn't Rob, the conspiracy theorist. This isn't Rush Limbaugh. This is the Democrats and the FBI's talking points, that they're incompetent. Why would we believe them about any investigation ever? If you're a lawyer out there, anyone who's had any FISA warrant on them whatsoever, who has had any FBI investigation against them, lawyers should be chomping at the bit. I'll take that case pro bono. We're going to sue the FBI for hundreds of millions. I'm not a lawyer and I could argue the case. Your Honor, the FBI's defense is they're so incompetent, they didn't know that they weren't supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. I'd like to see my client freed. We'll take $50 million to start with. Make them prove that they didn't change evidence. We want all their phone calls, all their transcripts. We had the small town I'm in. We had a police officer who got busted for selling narcotics a long time ago. There was a big question. If you got pulled over for a DUI by that guy, or you got pulled over for speeding, hey man, why should you take that officer's word? Once the officer's word is crap because they're corrupt or they're incompetent, why is their word good for any of the convictions that it led to? Everything. Serious chemical weapon. Who? Says who? The group that lied to us over and over, our intel community? Or they're so incompetent, they're just wrong all the time? Epstein. Go back and look. I'm on BitChute. My most watched video on BitChute is, can we stop with the lie that the FBI will eventually, even though Epstein's dead, will eventually get to the bottom of the case? Can we just stop? I said that 2 days after Epstein was dead. The same FBI that's so incompetent, they didn't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it does. Somehow, they had their most important prisoner, probably in 100 years, in custody, who apparently tried to kill himself, but instead of ensuring his safety, they just put 2 incompetent guards that fell asleep, had 2 malfunctioning cameras outside the cell, and he killed himself. But trust them, they'll get to the bottom of it. Yeah, Recon, you hear stories about that all the time. Of things similar to that. The same with the TSA. Did you know the TSA, when they do actual tests, only catches 20% of weapons that go through? Oh, I know, Milo. It is next to impossible to go against the government. But that doesn't mean that we as people with a brain shouldn't call out the BS. And maybe if more people would get angry, like me and you, Milo, and understand this, then it would be more possible to go against the government. But as long as people accept this crap, and that's where the Republicans fall short. They allow the narrative to be controlled. They should be out there every day calling for the disbanding of the FBI. There is no excuse for an agency that is so incompetent, and they admitted, right? The IG admitted, we talked to all the people at the head of the FBI, and they knew this would probably be their most heavily scrutinized case ever. Because it was one of the biggest cases that they ever handled. So they knew it. Now, how does it work at your job? If you know that the project, hopefully you do a good job all the time, but if you know this particular project I'm working on, my boss, it's so important, my boss is going to check everything. He's going to, from top to bottom. You're going to make sure that you're doing your best on that project. This was the opposite. The FBI knew this would be heavily scrutinized, and this is how they behaved. So how are they doing on a regular case that isn't going to have the scrutiny? Now remember, I know the truth. It's not incompetence. I'm sure they're incompetent, but it's corruption. That's what's going on. We know that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Regardless if it's incompetence or corruption, the end result's the same. They changed evidence to say the exact opposite of what it was actually saying. I'll be right back. Oh, that was a close one. I heard my dog chewing something. But it was just one of her toys. It was alright. Hey, you. What are you doing? My wife will be upset. It's her first day back to work from the vacation. I don't have to argue in corruption. Literally, thousands of people in this country, probably millions of people, including those that control the narrative, the media, intel agencies, etc., all the groups I talk about all the time, would look at me straight in the face and say, you don't believe the FBI about Russia hacking the DNC server? Conspiracy theories? How dare you? What a nut. What a conspiracy theorist. We're not going to listen to anything you say. In the same breath would tell me, oh, the FBI's just corrupt. They are incompetent. They didn't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it did. How do you know in the email or in the server hack they didn't change? How do you know that they didn't get to the bottom of it and say, we find Russia did not do this? And then someone just said, I'm just going to change it to say we find Russia did do it. How do we know? You just told us, the people at the top of the FBI, they didn't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. So how do we know? Have you seen the evidence? Nope. Heck, has the FBI seen the evidence? No, they didn't get access to the physical server. But we just have to take their word. You don't think that there's a globalist, establishment, left-wing, deep state vein running through the FBI at the top of it? Just look at Comey. Look at Brennan. Look at Clapper. So you don't think they have an agenda to push? So let's take something like, I don't know, hate crimes. Oh, FBI reporting hate crimes. Got to watch out for people that are quoting the Constitution, that are talking about the Second Amendment. Maybe. Maybe not. Why would I believe them? According to their own leadership, they're so incompetent, they don't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. Are you starting to see the theme? How can you believe anything they say after that? Anything. Now this might shock you, but there are real things that we should have a law enforcement agency looking at, like illegal immigration or cartels or child sex trafficking, white-collar crime, terrorism, foreign countries possibly trying to do things. The agency we have that's supposed to be doing that is so incompetent, they don't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. You're not safe from anything. It's that simple. Nothing. Las Vegas shooter, I don't believe them. I believe I could have did a better job investigating. How do I know that? Well, for starters, I know I'm not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. So that already puts me worlds more qualified than the leadership of the FBI. Right out of the gate. What about, let's see, Epstein. I think I should be in charge of the Epstein investigation. Now, I don't know much about international child sex trafficking. And I don't know about cameras malfunctioning or guards falling asleep or what the traditional policy for suicide watch is or even how to best prevent someone from harming themselves when they're in prison or ensuring others don't harm them. But you know what I do know? Not to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says. I know that. So I'm far more qualified than the entire FBI. Why shouldn't any one of you listening right now be head of the FBI over Chris Wray? What's the interview question? You receive an email from the CIA saying the person you're investigating was an asset for them. Do you A, accurately report that email to the FISA court, or B, alter the email to say the exact opposite? And what, Christopher Wray got the job because even though he answered B, he took longer to do it? It's incredible. No one. You got some people. You got Hannity. You got John Solomon, Tucker, Sarah Carter. There's some good. And then there's some Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz. And there's more. I get it. But the prevailing narrative, no one cares. No one cares. Where is my Republican representative? Where's he today? I'll tell you where he should be. He should be in front of any camera that'll have him go, did you see the abuses at the top of the FBI? This is incredible. I will not sleep until something is done. No other issue matters. None. Care about global warming? Who cares? No matter what law you pass, it'll have to be enforced. Who's going to enforce it? Not corrupt. The incompetent FBI? Anything. As long as the premier investigative agency in the history of the world is so incompetent that they don't know you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of what it says, no other issue matters. Nothing. It's that simple. Maybe that's it, Milo. Maybe it is secret societies and stuff. And I've read stuff to that extent. It's not my forte. I know there are many ways to get to the truth. But I don't even have to go that far to know this. The reason this is allowed to exist is because there's corruptions on both sides of the aisle. It's all over the place, just like with the Epstein crap, just like with the Harvey Weinstein crap. When everyone's hands are dirty, no one's going to blow the whistle. And so now we have this FBI. That's why it's the biggest scandal going into 220. And even if Barr and Durham, and I'm pessimistic. Yeah, I'll be heading out soon, Modus, with things. Even if Barr and Durham do hold some people to account, like I said, I'm pessimistic. They're not going to get to the root of this. We're going to be dealing with this even if Trump wins. We're going to be dealing with it long after Trump's second term. Until you get someone who's seriously willing to take it out at the root. Yeah, you have Murkowski. You remember that picture of Feinstein with her up against the wall in the Kavanaugh hearings? I always say it's like that movie Serpico. They try to get Serpico to take the bribe, right? Why? Because if you're corrupt, you want to ensure everyone around you is corrupt, because then they won't rat you out. That's what it feels like. So, I don't know. I mean, it's frustrating, but that's the scandal. That's the premier thing. You know, and I talked to a good friend this weekend who was hanging out with me, and he was like, I just don't care much about the FBI stuff. And I get it. I get why thinking this is just, they were corrupt towards Trump, but whatever. It's not that. It's everything. Everything. Do you know how many, like, just the day-to-day workings of almost our entire foreign policy at the center of it somewhere has recommendations from the intel community. If they're incompetent or corrupt, that, right out the gate, that's basically all of our entire foreign policy down the drain. Where are domestic dollars being spent? So much of it has to do with suggestions, investigations, theories, projects by the FBI. And they're either horribly corrupt or incompetent. And don't get it twisted. I.G. Horowitz said as much. He said when interviewed, he specifically said there's only two explanations. Corruption or incompetence or a combination thereof. And he quite clearly said in his report he had not been given an adequate explanation of why these abuses occurred. Now, when the Democrats and the media all said, oh, but he said there was no proof of corruption, that doesn't mean it wasn't corruption. His job wasn't to find intent. His job was to find whether or not FBI procedure was followed. It was not. He has no idea what the intent was. Was it incompetence or corruption? He knows it's one of the two or a combination, but he doesn't know which. My point is, if you're celebrating because you think incompetence is a victory, you're out of your mind. You're not. Your bias is what you are. You'll even cheer for the weaponization of the intel community to take down Trump because you hate Trump so much. And then they have the nerve to tell us, oh, you're a conspiracy theory. All this has been debunked. It's just nonsense. It's garbage. So, I hear you, Milo. I get it. And I know there's a lot of evidence for that type of stuff. It's just, it's not my forte. That's all I'm saying. The issue is this, and there is value no matter what anyone says in the truth, regardless if it helps your side or whatever. The truth is always important. But a lot of times when you get in the rabbit hole of secret societies and things like that, one, I don't have the expertise for it. But second, it allows them to just easy to brush this off. What I focus on and what I try to do is I could prove the actions right now is corrupt. It's corrupt. I could prove it. I try not to complicate. I tell the truth and try not to overcomplicate. Like, for example, take 9/11, for example, right? I don't need to argue that there were holograms or something like that, right? Like you hear people say. The people that say holograms do more damage to people that had legitimate questions, because then anytime you talk about, oh, you had questions about 9/11 like the holograms, they do the same thing here. Oh, you had questions about this? What? Like you believe Comet Pizza? Oh, you're a Pizzagator. Oh, you believe in, satanic cults from the 1400s. Yeah, okay. And the average person's not going to look into that. That doesn't mean it's not worth discussing, and I will discuss it. But it's not my area of expertise because I'm trying to convince people right now of the corruption that we see right in front of our face. And so the motive of, did the Epstein thing happen because of a 14th century satanic cult and kind of like the idea of getting power over the innocence of children and things like that? Or did it occur because they're just sex-crazed perverts? That's an important discussion to have, but the most important discussion, or the one I'm most qualified to have, is it's grotesque and needs to be dealt with, regardless of the motivation behind it. Thanks, Milo. Thanks, Pat. What testimonial that you sent me? Let me see if I can find it. I'll see if I can find it real quick for you, Milo. So with 9/11, my point was this was literally. Now look, I was more conspiratorial at one point, but my point in 9/11 was real simple. Wasn't the entire idea that we kind of were in a Cold War with Russia and they might drop a nuclear weapon on us? Like, I grew up watching movies like Red Dawn. So how was it after three planes hit that theoretically the most protected building in the world was still able to be hit? Who's been fired? What have we changed? And when I said that, people were like, you're anti-American. How dare you spread conspiracy theories? Yeah, Milo, and I'd be happy to have people on. I definitely would. And I'd be happy to talk. And here's the thing to all of you. Even if it's something I don't understand, if you come on my show, I'm not going to say I'll automatically agree with you. I'll be myself. I'll be honest. Hey, what's up, John? But I'm willing to listen to anything. Even if it's the opposite side. Even if you want to come on and tell me, why I'm wrong. I'm willing to hear it all. Like, I'm willing. I really am. I'm not saying I'll agree, but I'm willing to listen to people, particularly that talk about stuff that I don't understand or have an expertise on. But I think that's a great thing. You're right, Pat, and that's the problem, right? The average, I say this all the time. Holy cow, my hair's getting crazier. I say this all the time. I care about the country. I care about outing this corruption. I really do. But let's be honest. If I didn't enjoy doing this, I probably wouldn't be doing it. I'm no hero or anything. And there are so many people, you got a family, you got a job, you don't have time to sit down and read this stuff. I do it because it's a source of entertainment and interest to me, and I think that I can help out. I really do. That's why I'm going to run for Congress. Because I think I could help, that's first and foremost, but also because I would enjoy doing it. So many people are awesome people that just don't have the time, or they're just disgusted with things so much they don't get into the meat of stuff of what's going on. And so I'm trying to look at that and then present it, because you have to understand where I'm at in the world, right? I'm in rural Pennsylvania. That's what inspires me, the people I see every day that are welders, carpenters, farmers. These are my friends and family. And so when I'm talking to them, they'll just be like, what's up with this impeachment? I don't know nothing about it, And that's why I do what I do, because I'm trying to tell them, like, well, here's what's going on with this. That's what was going on. The simplest truthful explanation. Like, I'm not lying. I'm not bending the truth. But, like the Ukraine situation. You just boil it down real simple. Look, do you think if you had someone in the executive branch, like a president, vice president, secretary of state, whatever, someone in that branch that withheld billions of dollars to another country unless they fired someone who was looking into their family's business, you think there should be an investigation? Yep. Yeah, exactly. Trump's being impeached because he agreed with you. Now, here's a bunch of other facts on top of it. But that's how I go. So, yeah. So just a couple non-political stuff. My New Year's went really good. I give you my resolutions now. My resolution involving this channel is I'm going to continue to try to get bigger. I'm going to continue to try to grow. I have awesome people like Milo and Dib that were on here earlier that have donated to me. I'm going to be as transparent as possible with where donations, whether it be donations of money, donations of time. I had people donate me things like the logo I use. That was donated to me. Someone did. I had people donate me music, which I still have to get my hands on. Microphones I've had people donate. So I'm going to try to be as transparent as possible with where that's going. I'm going to try to average one video a day. Now, that might mean I take a day or two off and then do 2 videos other days. But that's what I'm going to try to do. My work schedule may be changing, but as of now, every Monday night at 11 p.m., I'll be doing a late night live stream. And every Thursday at noon, I'll be doing a live stream. The other days, I'll either do a live stream or I'm going to try to do videos between 5 and 7 minutes. So, that's my resolution for the channel. In addition to that, I'm going to try to get more guests on and try to reach out particularly to people like that are, I don't know if famous is the right way, but that are experts, like Bill Binney. Now, the chances of me getting him on are slim because he's a nationally known person. But I'm going to try. And Milo's helping me with maybe getting some people on to talk about the things he was talking about. Let me see what people are saying here. Right, Milo, and you do. And that's what a lot of our conversations, I'm so more ill-informed than you are on them. But that's what's great. Like, I love talking to people that know things about things I don't. I have areas of my expertise, and there are other things. But that's where I'm going at with the channel. In general, when it comes to politics, I'm going to gear up to run in 2022. Now, my district currently, I believe, is District 15 in Pennsylvania. It's a rural district. It will probably be redistricted by 2022, so I have no idea who I'd run against. I'll be running as a Republican, so I'm taking steps to start in that process now. So that's where I'm going politically. And I'm also trying to just do my best to help Trump in 2020 in Pennsylvania in any way I can, working with the Republican Party. Outside of that, I have a resolution to lose weight. I've taken some advice of some people. I looked into it. I'm going to try to do a lot of green tea. I got to watch carbs and sugar, so hopefully you'll see some progress there. I got exercise bike for right around Christmas, so I'm going to try to do like 5 miles a day on that at least, and things like that. So that's my resolution there. I had a great New Year's. My wife's birthday's New Year's Eve. She had an awesome party. I had a lot of fun. I apologize I wasn't doing videos, but sometimes you just need to not think about any of this stuff. So that's what was going on there. And then I've had some people express some interest in like doing non-political videos. Whether it might still tangentially be about politics. So for example, maybe entertainment industry, like movies and thoughts on that, or academia and things like that. But maybe I'll be doing stuff like that. I have tons of opinions on like the Pittsburgh sports scene, particularly the Pittsburgh Pirates that suck forever, that I could rant about. So maybe I'll do stuff like that. But yeah, that's where I'm at. And I think that I'm going to just try to grow my Twitter channel as well, and other places like BitChute and Patreon and things like that. So I really appreciate everyone's support. If you can, like and subscribe. Recommend me to some other people. My short-term goal is still to try to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I got some things in the works that I'm going to try to work on that. If you read the description of this video, it has the links to my Twitter account, my BitChute account, my PayPal, and my Patreon, if you would consider donating to anything like that. But don't worry, even if you don't donate, I'll still be here, and I'm still committed to doing good. So thank you, everyone who listened in today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go clean up the house a little. Yeah, thanks, Pat. And that, by the way, and that's, when you look at I got to change my intro video for my channel. But one of the things, like, one of these days I'll show you the cards I had printed out for my congressional run. And it's liberty, responsibility, civility, liberty, and responsibility. But what I mean by civility is the idea that I have tons of friends that are left-leaning. You know, we need to be building coalitions. The corruption's more than just right versus left. It's establishment versus non-establishment. It's globalists versus everyone else. And so we should welcome people that have all sorts of different opinions. We might have different opinions on the best economic system, but I think all reasonable people can agree that we all want these same goals. We want this corruption to end. So that's what I'm trying. So, all right, man. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it, everyone. I'm going to head out now and clean the house so I don't get yelled at by my wife when she gets home. So thanks again, and